clear night with temperatures dipping to around 6 to 12 Celsius. And it's a fresh feel as we start off Wednesday, but plenty of sunshine around. One exception, northern and northwest Scotland, where the cloud will be thicker, and we'll see this area of light rain passing through parts of the Western Isles as well as the northwest of the mainland. Northern Ireland, thicker cloud here and perhaps a few spots of rain in the far west, but across much of England and Wales it's brighter skies. We do still have some lingering cloud through southern counties of England and South Wales, generally south of the M4. But this will tend to thin and break through the morning, and plenty of sunshine will develop across much of Britain. I think Northern Ireland tending to stay cloudy, where we do have the sunshine and a change in wind direction with warmer air being wafted our way from the south. It's certainly going to feel much warmer, with temperatures reaching 25 to 27 Celsius across central and northwestern parts of England as well as East Wales. Then, as we go through Wednesday nights, as a result of the increased warmth and humidity, we will see some thundery showers developing in the far west and southwest. That will move through, but there's always a threat through Thursday, Friday and Saturday of further thunderstorms and high temperatures.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For a chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Yeah, you can, but no one likes a snitch. And I think office politics are often hard enough and enough of a minefield without getting involved. I think you have to leave it to the management. Unless you're their manager or their supervisor, I think trust in the process, don't stick your nose in. Because everyone always shoots the messenger. And in my experience, whenever I have flagged anything, it has normally turned round and bitten me rather nastily. So I wouldn't be getting involved.
But everybody suffers, Steve. That's my point of view. We're all being dragged down by these people who aren't pulling their weight.
Oh, I say bring on the snitch, whatever you want to call it, because at the end of the day, of course, you know, I go to work to earn my money. I don't go to work to earn your money. And coming back to the point the other contributor makes, you know, if the manager is a good manager, and let's say they are, then they'll obviously keep it confidential as well. The other thing we have to remember is that if someone is not pulling their weight, it builds up resentment. It builds up frustration and irritation. The other thing I would say as well is that a lot of teams out there, especially sales teams and customer service teams, are bonused on the team result. So, you know, if someone's behaving like a tortoise and I'm behaving like a racehorse, I'm sorry, I'm snitching.
Yeah, I mean, Sally, it's not fair on the whole team, is it, if somebody isn't pulling their weight?
No, that's absolutely true. But in a sales environment, that person will not last long. They will be thrown out. It just doesn't happen. And maybe I'm just not that much of a team player. I don't really care what anyone else is doing. As long as I'm all right, then I'm not going to worry about anybody else.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's a pleasure to have your company. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Reform UK unveil their new chairman, Dr. David Bull. And the former TV presenter replaces Zia Yusuf, who quit following an internal spat over the party's stance on banning the burqa. And a school shooting in the Austrian city of Graz has resulted in the deaths of several, we believe at least 10 people now, with students and teachers injured on the scene. And GB News will bring you the latest updates as we get it throughout the show. Over £14 billion of investment has been announced for construction of Sizewell C nuclear power station in Suffolk. Is the government finally making the UK energy independent, or actually, does Nigel Farage have a point? We should go back to using a bit of coal. And riots erupt in Northern Ireland after groups took to the streets following the appearance of two 14-year-old boys charged with the attempted rape. They appeared in court and they required the assistance of a Romanian translator. We'll be on the scene later in this show. Well, the show is a pleasure to have your company. Two very different takes on the future of UK energy. Yesterday in Port Talbot, Nigel Farage dangled the allure to the working classes of reopening coal mines, of firing up long shut down steel mills at Port Talbot. Drill, baby, drill, shale, oil, energy sovereignty, echoes of Donald Trump. Today, Keir Starmer slammed Farage, said that is looking backwards. The future is nuclear. I wonder, what does that say to you? What does that say to you if you live, as I'm from, one of the coal belts of the Midlands, the North, Yorkshire, Derbyshire, Cumbria, all of those parts, the forgotten industrial heartlands, now wastelands in Britain? Would you like the prospect of full employment, well-paid jobs? The government would have us believe nobody wants to work down coal mines anymore. It's dirty work. It's dangerous work. I don't think they understand the mindset of the working classes who look back on those times as some of the prosperous and happiest times since World War II, when we had community, when we had togetherness, when we had full employment, when we had belief, when we had patriotism. Do you get that from a nuclear power plant? Or is that something distant? Men in white coats with degrees that we can never hope to get if you're from the working classes. That's what I want to talk about today. Plus, Zia Yusuf sat down with Gloria De Piero and gave, I believe, his most revealing interview to date. We've got that to play in full. You'll not want to miss it. Get in touch, usual way, gbnews.com/your say. But now to your headlines. Here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. The Austrian Chancellor, Christian Stocker, described the deadly school shooting that took place earlier as a dark day in the history of our country. Officials have confirmed there were 6 female and 3 male victims of the attack, adding 5 teenagers and 2 adults are currently undergoing surgery in hospital. The suspected perpetrator, who also died at the scene, was a 21-year-old Austrian man from Graz, who used 2 guns to carry out the attack. Officers believe the former school pupil killed himself in the toilet. Earlier, Mr. Stocker described the attack as a national tragedy that strikes our country right at its heart. And there are no words, he says, for the pain and grief that Austria is feeling. The UK is formally to sanction 2 far-right Israeli ministers over their comments about Gaza. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the security minister, has encouraged the forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza to third countries. Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, who shares that view, has said he would not even allow a grain of wheat to enter the territory, despite repeated UN warnings about an impending famine. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has described their comments as monstrous. Both men, who've helped Benjamin Netanyahu maintain his fragile coalition government, will have their assets frozen and be banned from entering the UK. Well, meanwhile, Greta Thunberg has arrived in Paris after being deported from Israel, after being arrested for attempting to break the country's naval blockade of Gaza. Thunberg accused Israel of kidnapping her and her fellow activists in international waters and taking them against their will. Security forces intercepted their boat, which was carrying humanitarian aid bound for the territory. It's understood at least 3 of the other 11 activists on board the boat will be deported today as well. They were picked up off the coast of Egypt on a UK-flagged vessel attempting to take a small amount of aid, a symbolic amount, into Gaza. The Chancellor's hailed a new era of nuclear power in Britain after announcing a multi-billion-pound investment in Suffolk. Rachel Reeves says Sizewell C will create 10,000 jobs and enough energy to power 6 million homes. Now, opponents say ministers have not been honest about the final cost and that it will take at least a decade to complete. But the Prime Minister says it demonstrates the country's commitment to developing the sector.
Put this down today is really important. It's a change, not just an important decision for the future. It's a change of mindset. No more dithering, no more delay, no more being unclear about what we're going to do. A real statement of intent as we go forward.
Unemployment has hit its highest level in almost 4 years. New figures, which cover the period when budget tax increases on businesses came into effect, show that jobless rates jumped to 4.6%. That's the highest level since July 2021. And the figures also show the number of available jobs fell by 63,000 between March and May. It adds further pressure to the Chancellor after she had confirmed her winter fuel U-turn would cost around £1.25 billion. Police in Northern Ireland have appealed for calm. They say a number of properties have been damaged as a result of disorder sparked by an alleged sexual assault in the town of Ballymena. Mass use was seen throwing missiles toward armoured police vehicles. They were called to an anti-immigration protest in the Clonavon Terrace area. That's the site of the alleged sexual assault on a girl over the weekend. 2 14-year-old boys have appeared in court in connection. They've denied the charges. President Trump says he'll send thousands of additional troops to Los Angeles as protests over his immigration crackdown have continued. Residents of LA have been demonstrating against the immigration raids that have led to hundreds of foreign nationals being arrested. Donald Trump says he's sending up to 700 Marines and a further 2,000 National Guards after those clashes. Now, the California governor, Gavin Newsom, who's a Democrat, has described the deployment as deranged and dictatorial. Trump has rejected those criticisms.
He's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California. He's destroying one of our great states. And if I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order. You had a disaster happening, and they now admit it was a disaster. I watched the chief yesterday, who's a good man, by the way, and he said, well, we're lucky we did this because they were overwhelmed. You saw what was happening.
And commuters in London got a treat this morning, perhaps something of a surprise as well. 100 Coldstream Guards boarded a train at King's Cross. All of this part of their 375th year anniversary celebrations, dressed as always in their iconic scarlet tunics and those bearskin hats. Not a whole lot of room for extra luggage though, as you can see. And sunshine greeted them upon their arrival in Berwick-upon-Tweed. That is the regiment's birthplace a few hours later, where they took part in another parade. Not necessarily the most comfortable under those hats in the heat, but much better than the original trek that those guards made back in 1660. 5 weeks they spent going through heavy snow from Berwick to London. There's your headlines. Now it's back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron. Now to today's show, loads to get stuck into. And the top story today is this. Dr. David Burl has replaced Zia Yusuf as the Reform Party chairman, with Mr Yusuf taking control of the party's Department for Government Efficiency, its DOGE. Now, Dr. Burl was unveiled at a press conference earlier today, where he is welcomed into the role by both Nigel Farage and Mr Yusuf. Now, Yusuf resigned his position as chairman of Reform UK after an internal dispute that was prompted by Reform MP Sarah Pochin, who called for a burqa ban in her first PMQ question, a policy which Dr Bull has previously endorsed. Well, our reporter Adam Cherry was at that news conference earlier on today and also sat down and had a quick chat with Dr David Bull. Adam, welcome to the show. You were there.
Yeah.
And my take on this is I think this is canny politics. David Bull is very well known, very well liked. He's been a part of the party machine since its inception. And speaking to activists out there, he's very, very well liked by the grassroots, the kind of people actually that were getting a bit grumpy about Mr Yusuf. You were there today. Talk us through it.
Yeah, well, of course, on that point, I mean, you know more about that than I do. You worked with David Bull during that time. And my impression, I met him for the first time today, I think, and it was... Yeah, it's clear. His role, I asked Nigel Farage if it's an ambassadorial role. He said no, he rejected that and he said it's more inspirational. Now, really, what that means is, he's going out to the membership, meeting the membership, going to the branches, shaking hands, trying to grow the grassroots support and being a front man for team reform. And obviously, he's a former, until yesterday, a TV performer, familiar face to reform faithful, and I suppose, like you say, it makes sense, reducing Zia Yusuf's portfolio, and you'll have an interview with him later. It's cunning, savvy. I think those are fair characterisations. Why don't we take a look at what David Bull had to say to me earlier today? So this is what we had to discuss in the interview.
I think the country is changing. If you look at the latest polling, the map has now gone turquoise. So if we put the right candidates in those seats, then we have a high expectation we can win. So what we need is people like Sarah, who's a magistrate, people like me, who's a medic by training. We want people who have a backstory, who actually can back up something. So, for example, if I was to stand and win at an election, then obviously I would be very capable of handling a health brief, for example.
And so you mentioned by-elections there. Are you training your sights on one of those potential by-elections?
Well, they haven't been called. So, as soon as those by-elections are called, we'll find the right candidate. And actually, for me, the most important thing about the candidate is they have to be local. They have to understand the issues that face that particular community. So let's look at Suffolk, where I'm from, for example. You can't then put someone, a metropolitan elite person, into Suffolk, which is a rural constituency full of farmers who are absolutely smarting over what the Labour government has done to them.
There you go. So he's putting himself up for, I think, 2 new jobs there instantly. So he's going to, potentially, if there's a by-election in Suffolk where he's from, he'll have a look at that. And then if he's successful there in this hypothetical by-election, which has not been called, and so on and so on, he's taking a look at the health brief. So clearly very ambitious, wants to get stuck in. They're angling for a full shadow cabinet, it seems. They're not saying that in those terms, but they want to present a full team by 2029. So here's the reforms chancellor, blah, 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 blah. And he's angling for that health brief.
Yeah, I know David Bull very well. He was an MEP for the Brexit Party, the same cycle that I was elected at. I've worked with him a lot, and I'll tell you this, I don't know anybody that's got a bad word to say about David Bull. He's one of those fellas that gets on with everyone, and I thought it was very clever today when he talked about the volunteers, because the grassroots have been complaining a lot about arm's length, kind of almost dictatorial management style, and I think David Bull will be very good at working the grassroots, having a cup of tea with the old Doris and doing the people that should be looked after. You can't forget the grassroots. And I also think one of the Brexit Party's strengths was that it had people with clear backgrounds in clear areas that became party spokespeople on their area of expertise. Clearly, health is a huge issue, and I think naked ambition there, making a play for not only a by-election,
why not,
but also potentially as a future health minister. Now then, Zia Yusuf, also today, I thought he looked like a man unburdened.
He did.
He felt relaxed. Tell us about what you saw, and then we'll talk ahead about this exclusive sit-down.
So he spoke actually before introducing David Bull, his successor, and he did seem a little bit lighter on his feet and a bit more at ease. I did notice that. A couple of people noticed that, actually. He's probably in a role that is more suited to him, managing the UK Doge, managing government waste. They've got 10 county councils now, and so I suppose he's looking forward to getting stuck into doing all of that stuff. It was probably too much for one person, right? So they're spreading the portfolio out between several people. Also, another point is David Bull told me that they are looking to appoint a deputy chairman, and they won't give me any names, and they weren't saying exactly when they're going to do that, but imminently, and they will have some of those responsibilities as well from Zia Yusuf's previous brief. So it's being shared across several people now.
Because one thing, of course, that's vital, as well as keeping the grassroots happy, is screening and vetting and interviewing and meeting potential candidates. There's going to be a hell of a lot of work there. David Bull did a lot of that work in the summer of 2019. By the way, so did I. So we all got stuck into vetting candidates, and I think it makes political common sense to split those roles. Candidates, volunteers, Doge, this to me is grown-up politics. Let's talk about Zia Yusuf. Sat down with our very own Gloria Di Piero today, straight after that announcement. I honestly think it's the most revealing interview that Mr. Yusuf has ever given. A huge amount of talking points. You can see that interview in full in around about 45 minutes' time. But for now, here's a little tease.
To the degree people are granted citizenship, I think the idea that that should be done without people having a really firm and strong grasp of English is completely unacceptable, partly because, being a citizen of this country is an absolute privilege. And so, in many ways, a failure to learn English is a demonstration that you're not taking it particularly seriously.
There you go. That was Zia Yusuf sat down with Gloria Di Piero. Thank you to Rebecca for turning that clip around for us. The full interview being played out 45 minutes' time. It really, really is packed full of talking points. It really, really is. And it'll blow a lot of people's misconceptions about Mr. Yusuf away. Stick around for the full interview. Adam Cherry, excellent. As ever, my friend, thank you very, very much. Now, on some terrible news now from Europe, and at least 10 people have now been confirmed killed and a number of others injured in a shooting at a school in the southern Austrian city of Graz. And local police remain on the scene and supporting victims. And the suspected perpetrator, who also died at the scene, was a 21-year-old Austrian man who used 2 guns to carry out the deadly attack and was also found dead at the scene. Well, we can now speak with our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, for all of the very latest. Mark, welcome to the show. A terrible tragedy unfolding. What's the latest?
Yeah, a horrific event, and we've just had a news conference actually chaired by the Interior Minister in Austria and also the local state police chief, giving a bit more detail about the events that unfolded at 10 a.m. local time this morning at this secondary school. The first reports indicated calls, multiple emergency calls to the police, and these calls, the police could hear gunshots and people screaming in the background. Now, they have said, as you mentioned in your introduction, that the 21-year-old shooter was a former pupil at this school. He's a man who, we're told, didn't graduate, I should say, from this school, but who may well have held some kind of a grudge, has returned and clearly carried out what was a horrific set of shootings with 9 people, innocent victims killed, 6 of them women, 3 of them men, and he also, we're told, took his own life in a toilet block at the school. Now, at this news conference, the police confirmed that this 21-year-old was an Austrian national. He was not known to the police, and the 2 weapons that were used in the shooting were a long-barreled weapon and a handgun, both of which, according to the authorities, he held legally. He had a license for those weapons, so clearly that will have to form part of the investigation. Some of the reports, Martin, that came out early on in this incident reported rapid fire from the gun that was being used in this attack, so whether it had somehow been converted or whether it may have been a semi-automatic weapon, we don't know, but clearly an absolute tragedy in Austria's second city, with the Austrian Chancellor saying this is a dark day, that the country will observe 3 days of national mourning.
Mark White, whenever these incidents happen in countries abroad, we ask ourselves the same question. Do we know anything about the availability of guns in Austria? Is it relatively easy to get your hands on guns, or how does it compare, for example, to the United Kingdom?
Well, they have pretty liberal gun laws in Austria, but they actually have a relatively low rate of gun-related offences in that country. But if you're over the 18, 21 in the case of certain weapons, you can legally possess an array of different weapons, but depending on the type of weapon, if it's semi-automatic weapon, then there would have to be a good reason for possessing such a weapon, and there are fairly stringent checks that the Austrian citizens have to go through to obtain these weapons. But other weapons like shotguns and handguns, it's a bit easier to possess. But aside from that, there's a Europe-wide problem in terms of the availability of firearms, and we're talking about the kind of automatic weapons like AK-47s that have been widely used in the Balkans during the Balkans War, that are now sold by criminals on the black market and are readily available throughout mainland Europe. It's less of a problem here in our island nation, but still a problem that the authorities have to be aware of, the smuggling of firearms into this country. Thankfully, I say thankfully, mostly in the arms of the criminal community, but not in the arms of terrorists, thankfully, that element of it. But it's still an issue here, but it's much more of an issue in Europe, on the continent of Europe. And what they don't really have at the moment in Austria, at least, are the kind of terrorist attacks, jihadist-related terrorist attacks that we've seen taking place in Germany in very significant numbers over recent months and years, and of course France as well. They did have a gun attack in 2020 in Vienna, which I was reporting on back in 2020, and of course they had that plot to carry out a mass casualty attack at a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna. So there is a problem there, but on this particular instance they are not suggesting that this is terrorism in any way, but it was a former pupil, 21 years of age, who did not graduate that high school.
Mark White, thanks for bringing us up to speed, and as ever, thank you for your expertise. Always a pleasure. Mark White, thank you. Now, when we come back, we'll be looking into the multi-billion-pound investment plan into Britain's nuclear energy. But should the government have considered a more traditional power supply to help secure Britain's energy independence? How about coal, not dole? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 3 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, we're counting down to your best summer ever with £54,321,54321 in tax-free cash up for grabs. It's the biggest cash prize the Great British Giveaway has ever given away, and it could be yours in advance of tonight's lottery win. Now, here's the details that you need to enter.
It's our biggest cash prize to date, and you could win it. £54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
£54,321 could make you our biggest cash winner to date. For a chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck. Now, earlier on today, the government announced a golden age of nuclear energy as the Sizewell C power plant on the Suffolk coast finally gets the go-ahead as part of a wider £14 billion investment in the nuclear sector. Now, the construction of Sizewell C will apparently create 10,000 jobs. Zero goals. But the Prime Minister was asked about his reluctance to build any new coal power plants in the UK earlier today, because, of course, that's what Nigel Farage said he would do yesterday in Port Talbot. And this was his response when questioned by GB News' political editor Christopher Hope.
You're committing billions of pounds to nuclear power, but Nigel Farage wants to open coal mines if he wins power in Wales. Would you block him from doing that?
Well, I want to go forward, not backwards, and Nigel Farage is going backwards. The future is in renewables, in clean power, where we have complete control over our energy. And I'm really pleased with this announcement today, which is a huge project. We haven't done a project like this in this country for 30 years. China and France have been doing it, but not Britain. And I want Britain to be making sure that we've got the secure energy of the future. This is 10 years worth of jobs, 10,000 jobs. Here at this college in Suffolk, you can see for the apprentices, it's their future that is tied up with this project. Of course, there's the small modular reactor announcement for Rolls-Royce as well, a real statement of intent that we're going to take control of our own energy. That means independence, security, and driving down those energy prices. So we're looking forwards. Nigel Farage, I'm afraid, is looking backwards.
And you would block him doing that?
Well, he's looking backwards, and we look forwards.
The spending reviews tomorrow. Your manifesto says Labour has a straightforward vision for policing and criminal justice. When you call the police, they should come. When you report a crime, it should be properly investigated. But rank and file officers are worried about this deal hammered out by Yvette Cooper. Will we be less safe after your spending review?
No, we'll be more safe. There's money going into policing, into security, and that is really important, particularly coming from my background. I was chief prosecutor for 5 years. prosecuting cases across England and Wales. So this is a core belief of mine. Those extra police officers will be neighbourhood police officers, and I think that will give people the reassurance in their communities that they are safe and security as individuals, as families, as communities. But tomorrow the spending review is also about huge investment in the future of our country. You saw last week the strategic defence review, huge investment. You saw what we're doing on free school meals. No government has ever done that before, and today the investment in Sizewell and the future of our energy in this country. So this is what we're doing to drive our country forward, the sort of investment we haven't seen for a very, very long time in this country.
And will you apologise tomorrow on winter fuel?
Sorry?
Will you apologise tomorrow on the winter fuel reverse?
The decision we made on winter fuel in the budget was the right decision. We had to stabilise the economy, and we've done that. As a result of that, by the way, we committed to the triple lock, something the Tories haven't done, and that means £470 went on to pensions in April, hugely important. I'm pleased that we're able to do this now. More pensioners will be eligible. It's important the decision was made this week because the costing will obviously be at the budget, quite right too, but we need to make it this week so that everybody knows where they stand, but most importantly, the system can be put in place to make those payments this winter. So I'm really pleased to be able to do that.
I think that was one of the most revealing things that Sir Keir Starmer has said since he was Prime Minister. We don't want to look backwards and look at coal mines. We want to look forwards, and it's all about renewables and nuclear energy. I put it to you that the Prime Minister here isn't taking the temperature of working-class Britain. Now, for those who watch the show regularly, you'll know my dad was down the pit 47 years. Here he is, Bob, my hero. People across the coal belts were abandoned, and those industries were never replaced across the coal belts of the Midlands, of the North, Scotland. And today felt to me, there he is, there's my dad, Bob, felt to me like the Labour Party finally drove a stake through the heart of any prospect of getting a British coal industry back. A lot of people might think that's a mistake. Now, later in the show, I'm going to speak to David Craddock, former coal miner in Whitehaven. Whitehaven, particularly significant because there was a coal mine ready to go in Whitehaven. It was blocked by Ed Miliband. One of the first things he did when he got into power. It was blocked by Ed Davey, Liberal Democrats. It was blocked by Greenpeace. It was ready to go. It had the kind of coking coal that could have been used in the furnaces that we need to keep our steel industry going. Instead, we import coal from Japan, from America, from Australia. I put it to you, it's about more than clean energy. It's about working class communities having a beating heart, having full employment, every job underground, 4 jobs overground. You know, paper shops, butchers, pubs, restaurants, thriving communities that take care of their properties and have belief in their nation. I think it's about more than clean energy. I think it's about the beating heart of working class Britain. Nigel Farage and Keir Starmer seemingly have very different visions of what that looks like. I wonder which one appeals most to you at home, GB News viewers. Please let me know your thoughts. We'll be having this debate throughout the show. What about coal, not dole, rather than being reliant on clean, green energy in its entirety? Loads more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including how locals in Ballymena in Northern Ireland are managing the damage and outrage following riots in their streets overnight. But first, it's time for your headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. Good afternoon to you. It's 3:33. Our top stories: 10 people have been killed and a dozen more injured in a mass shooting at a school in the Austrian city of Graz. Officials have confirmed there were 6 female and 3 male victims of the attack, along with the perpetrator himself, who died at the scene. Police say he was a 21-year-old Austrian man from Graz who used 2 guns to carry out the attack. It's understood that 5 teenagers and 2 adults are also undergoing surgery in hospital. The Chancellor of the country, Mr. Stocker, has described it as a national tragedy that strikes at the heart of the country and says a national minute of silence tomorrow will be followed by 3 days of national mourning. The UK is formally to sanction 2 far-right Israeli ministers over their comments about Gaza. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the security minister, has encouraged the forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza to third countries. And Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, who shares that view, says he wouldn't allow even a grain of wheat to enter Gaza despite repeated UN warnings about an impending famine. The Foreign Secretary has described their comments as monstrous. And the Chancellor has hailed a new era of nuclear power in Britain after announcing a multi-billion-pound investment in Suffolk. Rachel Reeves says Sizewell C will create thousands of jobs and power millions of homes. Opponents, though, say there isn't true honesty about the final cost from ministers, and there's criticism over how long the project will take to complete. Meanwhile, Reform UK have announced their new chairman after the shock resignation of Zia Yusuf last week. Dr David Bull's a former party chair of Nigel Farage's party, a long-term ally of its leader, perhaps best known as a broadcaster and TV presenter. Mr Farage says his new role will be to give leadership to activists rather than get involved in admin. There's your headlines. More from me around 4 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Quick look at the markets today. The pound buys you $1.35, 1.18 euros. Gold will cost £2,464 and 46 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 8,871 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Following a damp start to the week for many of us, we've seen clearing skies today, the sunshine returning, and it's a fine end to the day for most of us before the heat and humidity builds later this week. Here's the low that brought the rain at the start of this week, but it is now clearing. However, it leaves a legacy of low cloud across southern counties. That cloud tending to thin through the evening and overnight, but some of it will persist along the south coast. A few spots of drizzle couldn't be ruled out. Likewise, cloud returns to Northern Ireland and Western Scotland with a few spots of rain into the Outer Hebrides. But for most, it's a dry and clear night with temperatures dipping to around 6 to 12 Celsius. And it's a fresh feel as we start off Wednesday, but plenty of sunshine around. One exception, northern and northwest Scotland, where the cloud will be thicker, and we'll see this area of light rain passing through parts of the Western Isles as well as the northwest of the mainland. Northern Ireland, thicker cloud here and perhaps a few spots of rain in the far west, but across much of England and Wales it's brighter skies. We do still have some lingering cloud through southern counties of England and South Wales, generally south of the M4. But this will tend to thin and break through the morning, and plenty of sunshine will develop across much of Britain. I think Northern Ireland tending to stay cloudy, where we do have the sunshine and a change in wind direction with warmer air being wafted our way from the south. It's certainly going to feel much warmer, with temperatures reaching 25 to 27 Celsius across central and northwestern parts of England as well as East Wales. Then, as we go through Wednesday nights, as a result of the increased warmth and humidity, we will see some thundery showers developing in the far west and southwest. That will move through, but there's always a threat through Thursday, Friday and Saturday of further thunderstorms and high temperatures.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Today's road conditions are in focus. The A9 at Calvine faces restrictions in both directions due to planned maintenance, so drivers should brace for longer than usual journey times. On the A38 in Devon, westbound traffic between the M5 and the junction with the A382 encounters congestion, with delays of 50 minutes anticipated to clear by 4:15 this afternoon. And on the trains, cross-country industrial action may impact your journey. London North Western Railway reports a reduced service between Bletchley and Bedford. Stay up to date at gbnews.com for more travel news.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 3:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, over in Northern Ireland, residents are still reeling following disorder and violence in Ballymena. Hundreds of people took to the streets where several properties were damaged and at least 2 houses have reportedly been set alight. Now, the unrest is believed to be related to 2 14-year-old boys appearing in court where they denied the alleged sexual abuse of a teenage girl. Now, the pair, who cannot be named for legal reasons because of their age, they were accompanied and assisted by a Romanian translator during their appearance. And our reporter in Northern Ireland, Dougie Beattie, is on the scene for us this afternoon. Dougie Beattie, incredibly delicate situation there and volatile on the ground. Tell us, what's the latest?
Well, Martin, this was going to come somewhere in Northern Ireland within the next few weeks. Ever since the Rwanda plan has been shelved, there is a massive amount of foreign nationals coming across an open border and into Northern Ireland. Most of them are being settled in working class areas. Former social houses have been bought over by landlords, and then they have took out contracts with groups like Mears that will supply to those arriving on our shores. And what you find with that is that they are all in one area or one housing estate. And what happened here, there was allegations of a 13-year-old that had been sexually assaulted in this area. And last night there was a protest just up the road from here at Harryville. Tempers frayed when the police tried to stop them getting over a bridge, which is just about 20 feet in front of me. They broke through those lines, and it kicked off, first of all, with the police, and then turned into violence in this street. Now, you can see to my right-hand side here, one of the houses are totally burned out. The one next door to it isn't far away from that, of being totally gutted. And then you go down the street, there's about another 10 houses with their front windows out, doors in, real, very substantial damage. The housing executive and many property firms at this time are trying to put that back together and make those homes livable. But I have filmed and looked at many families leaving here, most of them from the Roma community, suitcases behind them, boxes getting put into the backs of cars. They are leaving this area. And still tensions, believe it or not, are pretty high here at the moment. There is a police presence here. It is light touch, but the police station is actually right at the end of this street, the back wall of it. But there is a lot of youths still around here at this moment in time, and most of them that I have been talking to, they don't want to come on camera, say that this has been going on for so long, and they're afraid to come out at nights, and it has spilled over. They say their local politicians aren't listening to them, and they don't want a massive amount of migrants into this area. So there is real problems here, and when they look at migrants, they've got to say, where are they putting to them? Where are they putting them? I was in Dublin last year. They put them into exactly the same areas, working class areas. The difference being is Northern Ireland is a post-conflict society that is still divided in a lot of ways, and there is social justice at work here.
And Dougie Beattie, explain a bit more about that, if you can, to GB News viewers, because there's a strict code of conduct in these working class areas. If you commit a crime against a woman, particularly a young woman, there can be consequences, justice from within the community. Nobody is condoning that, but tell us about the historical backdrop, Dougie Beattie, and how this is a continuum of what's been going on for many, many years.
Yes, after the Troubles were over, those paramilitaries still ran these working class areas on both sides of the divide. That's in Catholic and Protestant areas, Unionist, nationalist areas. And if you step out of line with them, especially with the likes of a sexual assault or especially an elderly person with a mugging or anything like that, the community here would go to the police first. If they don't get any sort of reaction from the police, the paramilitaries come in and they do that for them, and that includes things like kneecappings, crucifixions, all sorts of things that you wouldn't even imagine. And somehow or other that actually sets those paramilitaries up onto a higher level inside those communities. So the Chief Constable here, John Boucher, has a very thin line to walk, because if he isn't seen to be doing justice, he isn't seen that the police are arresting people, unfortunately, those in these communities will go to those paramilitaries to look for social justice.
Dugabiti, thank you for bringing us up to speed on this delicate and volatile story, and also just putting some, I think, vital social context there. It's vital that people understand the social fabric and the social contract of those communities. Dugabiti, thank you very much, as ever, for bringing us up to speed. Now, change of tone. If you're in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of summer warmth and sunny skies over the Mediterranean at the moment. A few thunderstorms brewing up over northern parts of Spain, and temperatures on the rise in Italy. Sunny skies for most of the Greek islands. Not too hot here as the breeze is coming down from the north. Temperatures ticking up in Rome into the mid-30s perhaps by the end of the week. There are those heavy showers across northern Spain, parts of northern Portugal also seeing some downpours. But Lisbon, I think, set fair, and temperatures, as I said, rising into the mid-30s in Rome later this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Now, in just a few moments' time, we'll be looking at Sadiq Khan, because he's received a knighthood today. But should we be updating the rules to make sure that politicians no longer receive gongs for their work? And do you believe Sadiq Khan deserves his knighthood? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
So a new book will challenge the conventional view of Alzheimer's, claiming that for the vast majority of people, it is not an inevitable part of ageing, but something that can actually be prevented.
So we're joined in studio now with Patrick Holford, chair of the Alzheimer's Prevention Expert Group, who joins us now. Patrick, it's a very powerful message, the idea that you can prevent Alzheimer's. There seems to be a sense that it's just inevitable with ageing for a lot of people. Why is it not?
It's not inevitable, because half of people don't get it. And one point to make very clearly is that less than 1 in 100 cases are caused by genes. So there's a few very, very rare genes which will cause Alzheimer's. So possibly for up to 99%, we can prevent it. And even a major UK biobank study, which, by the way, left out 2 of the most important risk factors, for reasons I'll explain, concluded that 73% can be prevented. The terrible thing about Alzheimer's, which is really a shrinkage of the brain, is once you've got holes in your brain, there is no way to reverse that. The rate of brain shrinkage in people with pre-dementia reduced by 73%. In the latest drug, donanemab, the rate of brain shrinkage increased by 20%. So what we're really in right now is a pharmaceutically led sort of industry that is pushing for a cure. I don't think a cure will come because there isn't a single point.
Well, the book is Alzheimer's Prevention is the Cure. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Foodforthebrain.org.
Patrick Holford, chair of the Alzheimer's Prevention Expert Group.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:49. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, despite facing a difficult start to the year, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has received his knighthood today at the investiture ceremony at Buckingham Palace. Now, this is the moment where Sir Sadiq Khan received the honour. Mr Khan was elected the Mayor of London in 2016 and has held London's highest office ever since. He was joined at the investiture ceremony by the newly honoured Dame Jacqueline Wilson and also Sir Lloyd Grossman. So did he deserve his gong? And is it time to stop giving gong to politicians, full stop? Well, those are two questions I'm now going to put to the former candidate for the Mayor of London, Howard Cox, for his take. Howard Cox, always a pleasure to have your company. So, how did the words "Arise, Sir Sadiq Khan" make you feel today?
Hello, Martin. Long time no speak. Good to see you, mate. Honestly, look, you know what I think, and we should be after the watershed before I could actually say anything. But I just got back from a campaign meeting because I'm preparing for the spending reviews tomorrow regarding, the fuel duty and things like that for Fairfield UK. And I came back and I've got a skilled contractor, a building contractor doing some work in my home. And he said to me, "Howard, have you heard? Sadiq Khan is now Sir Sadiq Khan." And the words he actually used are so colourful, you cannot, honestly, he's discussed in colourful language, cannot be repeated. I mean, how has an anti-British politician who has destroyed London's economy and, as you know, the road infrastructure can be knighted, I believe, is sick.
Well, Howard Cox, a lot of people might say, depending on your political allegiance as well, he's put cycle lanes in, he's brought LTNs in, he's made the air cleaner, he's after a cleaner, greener future where we can all dance with unicorns. Should not that be worthy of a gong from His Majesty?
Look, violent crime's up. I'm going to go through some stats I quickly put together. Violent crime since he's been involved is up 35%. Sexual offences, 51%. There's a rape reported every hour. Homicides up 5%. Knife crime up 54%. Machetes you can get on every corner street now with him. Trains covered in graffiti. Jews are scared to go into London. Not building affordable housing, as he promised. He's ignored public consultations, which is where I was very close with on the ULEZ expansion, which 2 out of 3 people were against. He just said, "Forget it. I'm ignoring that. We're still going ahead with it." And he lied about the emissions impacts, that 4,000 people were dying because of emissions. One person has been actually on any death certificate for that. And my point is this, it's very, very simple. He's been rewarded for failure. And yet I just don't understand. And I'd love to know, Martin, and as my contractor said, who actually recommended him for a knighthood? It's, as you alluded to in your question, is this just a default thing? Because he's Mayor of London, he gets a knighthood. These are the sorts of things that's really upset me beyond belief. And I have to say to you, I feel very emotional, very upset and physically sick about this man being rewarded for failure.
Howard Cox, clearly, that there's no love lost between yourself and Sir Sadiq Khan. What about the broader topic of should we just do away with gongs for politicians, full stop? Because it doesn't matter who you support, somebody's going to be upset. Baroness Margaret Thatcher, no doubt you would believe, was highly deserving of that award. A lot of people would disagree. Gavin Williamson got one. A lot of people believe David Cameron's hairdresser. This sort of thing. Should we just be stopping people in politics getting gongs, full stop? Because whoever you give a gong to, somebody somewhere is going to be extremely unhappy.
Well, my feeling has always been this way. If you're paid to do the job and you do it well, that's enough for reward. You get paid to do it and that sort of thing. But if you're a volunteer, and there's a lot of people out there day in, day out, night, delivering things voluntarily, helping people beyond belief, who are not rewarded, they're not noticed by the media, etc., because they're not a sexy person or a sexy name. From that point of view, I mean, I'm not off. I mean, someone's tried to get me nominated for a knighthood, but because I support Tommy Robinson, I've got no chance. And for 15 years, I've stopped £200 billion worth of fuel duty rises. I'm not after a knighthood. Martin, I'm not really involved in politics so much now as I used to be. But I am involved in public affairs campaigning. And
OK, Howard, we've run out of time. Sir Howard Cox, always a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel. Next, when we come back, an exclusive sit-down with previous Reform Chairman Zia Yusuf on why he resigned and some incredible opinions you would not want to miss. First, though, here's your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Following a damp start to the week for many of us, we've seen clearing skies today, the sunshine returning, and it's a fine end to the day for most of us before the heat and humidity builds later this week. Here's the low that brought the rain at the start of this week, but it is now clearing. However, it leaves a legacy of low cloud across southern counties. That cloud tending to thin through the evening and overnight, but some of it will persist along the south coast. A few spots of drizzle couldn't be ruled out. Likewise, cloud returns to Northern Ireland and Western Scotland with a few spots of rain into the Outer Hebrides. But for most, it's a dry and clear night with temperatures dipping to around 6 to 12 Celsius. And it's a fresh feel as we start off Wednesday, but plenty of sunshine around. One exception, northern and northwest Scotland, where the cloud will be thicker, and we'll see this area of light rain passing through parts of the Western Isles as well as the northwest of the mainland. Northern Ireland, thicker cloud here and perhaps a few spots of rain in the far west, but across much of England and Wales it's brighter skies. We do still have some lingering cloud through southern counties of England and South Wales, generally south of the M4. But this will tend to thin and break through the morning, and plenty of sunshine will develop across much of Britain. I think Northern Ireland tending to stay cloudy, where we do have the sunshine and a change in wind direction with warmer air being wafted our way from the south. It's certainly going to feel much warmer, with temperatures reaching 25 to 27 Celsius across central and northwestern parts of England as well as East Wales. Then, as we go through Wednesday nights, as a result of the increased warmth and humidity, we will see some thundery showers developing in the far west and southwest. That will move through, but there's always a threat through Thursday, Friday and Saturday of further thunderstorms and high temperatures.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A9 at Calvine has restrictions due to maintenance. A collision on the M56 eastbound between junctions 15 and 14 in Cheshire West and Chester has closed lanes, causing 50-minute delays. Expect congestion on the M40 northbound in Oxfordshire between junctions 10 and 11. The A20 eastbound in Kent has a lane closed, affecting flow. The A38 westbound in Devon has roadworks with lanes closed. And on the trains, cross-country strikes may impact journeys, and London North Western Railway has reduced services between Bletchley and Bedford. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For a chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. It's wonderful to have your company, and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Reform UK unveil their new chairman, Dr. David Bull. The former TV presenter replaces Zia Yusuf, who quit following an internal spat over the party's stance on banning the burqa. Now, just a few moments' time, we'll bring you an exclusive sit-down interview with Zia Yusuf from our own Gloria De Piero, where he will address his initial departure from Reform UK and why he chose to return, plus some sensational exposés on his thoughts on speaking English and also on cousin marriage in the United Kingdom. And a school shooting in the Austrian city of Graz has resulted in the deaths of at least 10 people, with apparently 28 further students and teachers injured on the scene. GB News will bring you all the latest as we get more information. And riots erupt in Northern Ireland after groups took to the streets following the appearance of two 14-year-old boys charged with attempted rape. They appeared in court with the assistance of a Romanian translator. We'll be on the scene for all the latest from the scene. On the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. Also today, the government unveiled its vision for the energy future of Britain, 14 billion quid on Sizewell, a huge nuclear power plant that might not even be online for another 8 years. There's a prospect of 10,000 jobs, apparently. But are they the kind of jobs that will replace the jobs that was lost in the industrial heartlands of Britain when the coal mines, the steel plants, the shipyards, all of those things disappeared? Energy sovereignty is fine and, of course, a laudable prospect. But what about the jobs for those who don't go to fancy universities, who don't have engineering degrees, who don't buy in or can't even afford to do that? Where are the working classes in this equation? And actually, Nigel Farage yesterday in Port Talbot was intimating there could be a reopening of some coal mines, at least those required to fund and fuel the blast furnaces for the sovereign British fuel industry. Two visions of an energy policy for a future Britain. Which one do you buy into? Stick around for that exclusive sit-down with Zia Yusuf. It really, really is utterly fascinating. I believe now a man unburdened by the minutiae of managing candidates. Get on with Doge, and he's unburdened, and he's told us a heck of a lot about his beliefs. You will not want to miss it. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Just after 4 o'clock, our top stories. The Austrian Chancellor has described the deadly school shooting earlier as a dark day in the history of his country. Officials have confirmed there were 6 female and 3 male victims, adding that 5 teenagers and 2 adults are currently undergoing surgery in hospital. The suspected perpetrator, who also died at the scene, was a 21-year-old Austrian man from Graz who used 2 guns to carry out the attack. Officers believe the former school pupil killed himself in the toilet. Well, earlier, Mr. Stalker described the attack as a national tragedy that strikes at the very heart of our country. He says there are no words for the pain and grief Austria is feeling. A national minute of silence will take place at 10 a.m. local time tomorrow, followed by 3 days national mourning. The UK is formally sanctioning 2 far-right Israeli ministers over their comments about Gaza. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the security minister, a convicted racist, has encouraged the forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza to third countries. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has approved the expansion of West Bank settlements, which are illegal under international law, and has campaigned against humanitarian aid in Gaza, saying he wouldn't allow even a grain of wheat into the territory despite UN warnings about famine. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has previously described their comments as monstrous.
Today we are announcing sanctions against those individuals because we have been absolutely clear. This has to stop, and we stand for a two-state solution, and the settler violence that we've seen in the West Bank particularly is entirely unacceptable and must stop.
Greta Thunberg's arrived in France after being deported by Israel for attempting to break the country's naval blockade of Gaza.
We made this trip with a smaller boat and a smaller crew because that's all that we had, because they bombed the last boat. And as I said, this is about bringing as much humanitarian aid as we possibly could.
Well, she's on her way back to Sweden after the deportation. Her and a group of 11 other activists were picked up on board the UK-flagged Madeleine off the coast of Egypt on Monday. They had been attempting to take a symbolic amount of aid into Gaza. The Chancellor's hailed a new era of nuclear power in Britain after announcing a multi-billion-pound investment in Suffolk. Rachel Reeves says Sizewell C will create 10,000 jobs and enough energy for 6 million homes. The Prime Minister says it demonstrates the government's commitment to developing the sector.
Put this down today is really important. It's a change, not just an important decision for the future. It's a change of mindset. No more dithering, no more delay, no more being unclear about what we're going to do. A real statement of intent as we go forward.
Reform UK have announced their new chairman after the shock resignation of Zia Yusuf last week.
Comes into this job with terrific verve, energy, enthusiasm, and it's going to be great fun. Dr. David Bull.
I am thrilled, I am delighted to take up this position of chairman.
Well, David Bull, a former deputy chairman of the party, a long-term ally of Nigel Farage, perhaps best known as a broadcaster and TV host. Police in Northern Ireland say a number of properties have been damaged during disorder sparked by an alleged sexual assault in the town of Ballymena. Masked youths were seen throwing missiles towards armoured police officers who were called to an anti-immigration protest in the Clonavon Terrace area. That's the site of the alleged sexual assault on a girl over the weekend. 2 14-year-olds appeared in court in connection with the assault. They denied the charges. And commuters at King's Cross in London got a treat this morning, and perhaps something of a surprise. 100 Coldstream Guards boarded a train as part of their 375th anniversary celebrations. They were dressed in iconic scarlet tunics and bearskin hats. Not a whole lot of room, headroom in the carriage, or indeed room for extra luggage there. But the good news, sunshine greeted them upon their arrival in Berwick-upon-Tweed. That's the regiment's birthplace. Now, it's in stark contrast to the 5-week trek the Guards made on foot through heavy snow from Berwick to London back in 1660. Those are your headlines. More from the GB Newsroom a little bit later.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron. Now to our top story this afternoon, and it's this. Dr. David Bull has replaced Zia Yusuf as Reform UK Party chairman, with Mr Yusuf taking control of the party's Department for Government Efficiency, its DOGE unit. Now, Dr. Bull was unveiled at a press conference earlier today in London, where he was welcomed into the role by both Nigel Farage, the party leader, and Mr Yusuf. Now, Yusuf resigned his position as chairman of Reform UK last week after an internal dispute following Reform MP Sarah Pochin calling for a burqa ban in her first question at PMQs, a policy, by the way, which Dr. Bull has previously endorsed. Well, early today, we sat down for an exclusive interview with Zia Yusuf. He sat down with GB News' very own Gloria De Piero, and he addresses his departure as chairman and why he believes Dr. David Burl is the perfect man to succeed him, plus some other spicy stuff. Take a look.
Zia Yusuf, welcome. You've come fresh from a Reform Party press conference this morning. Last week you were Reform Party chairman. This morning you have been watching your colleague David Bull named as party chairman. How do you feel?
I feel good. I feel very good. It's great to be back. It's great to be back. And, you know, in those 48 hours or so that passed after I sent that tweet, which I now regret, I was inundated with messages, emails, DMs from people who told me how important reform was to them. You know, it's much more than a political party. It is a movement, they believe, which frankly, many of these people were putting in their messages. It represents, for many of them, the last hope the country has to turn itself around. And I'm paraphrasing what almost all the messages said. They were lovely, they were heartfelt, they also underscored how important they thought I was within the movement. And many of them were just very declaratively asking me to reconsider. And as is often the case, as I said at the press conference, and I think people watching this hopefully can empathise with this, sometimes it takes a little distance from someone or something for you to realise how important something is. And so those things coming together just made me realise, look, I'd made a mistake. I think this is the most important work of my life.
Did you apologise to all of your colleagues after?
Yeah, I did, because my tweet was an intemperate tweet born of exhaustion, which I
was it
I
the
regret.
wording you regret? Was it?
I regret.
Dumb?
No, look, so
the burqa.
Well, so we'll come to the burqa bit in a minute,
Yeah.
Because it would be useful just to clarify that. But in terms of the tweet, it was the decision to resign, and I don't mind saying, you know, I'm a workaholic. I've given my all. You know, one of my favourite passages from Scripture is, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, doeth with thy might. And I've always subscribed to that. I give my all to everything that I do. We've had 11 months of building this party, and we've achieved, I think, something truly extraordinary. I think the May the 1st elections will go down as probably the most historically important set of local elections in this country's history. And I basically hadn't had a day off. Even after the election, you may remember I was at the Runcorn count.
Up all night.
Amazing. Lots of adrenaline. And I barely got any rest then, because then it was straight off to do media rounds, and then it was straight to the Kent celebration, and then straight off to go and launch 10 councils.
OK, so are you going to change your working patterns then? Because I think the logic of what you're saying is you were burnt out. You were working too hard, and that led you to lose your temper, ill-advised tweet, full of regret. So have we got or have Reform got a different Zia Yusuf back after apologising to you?
So, look, the one change I am going to make, because I think it was a confluence of multiple issues. One was also my information diet, especially in that job of doing all sorts. Frankly, I was doing about 8 to 10 jobs, just because not because I wanted to do them, but when I arrived as chairman, there was basically no infrastructure, virtually no team. There wasn't a political party, and so we've assembled this thing that is growing, with 400-odd branches. We've got well over 250,000 members now. So one thing I'm going to do is spend less time on X, because the information, you know, one of the things the messages really underscored to me. I mean, candidly, I got a lot of it when we were knocking on the doors in Runcorn, but otherwise, you know, the day-to-day job that I was doing, running from one thing to the other, you just don't hear from those people. And those are the people to whom we owe everything, the whole movement is dedicated to, and for whom everything Nigel and the MPs and everyone at Reform is doing is so important. So that is an important change I'm going to make. I think in terms of work, I maybe that's something that people might recommend. I love what I do. I do it with energy. I will take a holiday, even a few days off, I think would be helpful. But this is a time-limited mission, and I don't mind saying that. I've said that all along. It is my view that if we don't get a Reform government at the next general election with Nigel as the Prime Minister, I don't know if there will be a country worth saving. And I say that advisedly, having thought about it deeply.
Nigel Farage said last week that you snapped after receiving a tirade of personal racist abuse on social media. What sort of abuse do you have to take? Nobody should have to be subject to any of it. But what sort of abuse are we talking about here?
Well, look, I want to be really clear. I take personal and full responsibility for the error of judgment that I made. Politics is a rough and tumble. But find me a politician, anyone in frontline politics who doesn't get abuse, racist or otherwise, misogyny for women.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's awful. Unfortunately, I think moderation on social media is a difficult problem. So I take full, ownership and responsibility of it. Look, in terms of the racial stuff, number one, they're not Reform supporters, certainly in the main. They're not Reform supporters. That's the first point.
How do you know?
Secondly, well, just because you can see from other stuff that they're saying, right? And secondly, I think what's really important is that if you come into politics, it is really important you believe in something, and you're doing it because you have some values and principles that you would like to be much more prevalent inside the country, and that really does describe everyone inside Reform. So, look, the reality is a lot of that stuff. It was really a function, as I said, of the exhaustion, multiplied by too much time on X.
OK, let's talk about assimilation. So what might be a measure of whether we regard success in assimilating?
Yeah.
We could talk about, you have to speak English. We could talk about arranged marriage. We could talk about first cousin marriage. Are any of those measures, you may have others, are any of those things, signs that are integral to assimilation?
Totally. And some of those are measurable, right? So
they're all legal.
Let's talk about English. Let's talk about speaking English. You can measure that by the amount of money that the taxpayer pays for translators. Totally measurable. That number is a huge number now and has been growing. And I don't think that's fair. Look, is there some nuance around that? Yes. Maybe for a totally genuine, legitimate asylum seeker who applied through proper channels and has come here legal, all of that stuff, fine, right? But the enormous amounts of money now that is being spent on translators inside our health service, inside the Home Office, totally unacceptable. And that is measurable, right? And so I would be totally in favour of saying the British taxpayer should not be funding taxpayers, certainly so it should not be funding English translators for the most part. Then if you look at...
So speaking English is a non-negotiable for you?
Of course. I don't think somebody should be... we can have a separate conversation about how we need to basically cut net migration to zero, I think, for a number of years.
Yeah.
But to the degree people are granted citizenship, I think the idea that should be done without people having a really firm and strong grasp of English is completely unacceptable, partly because, being a citizen of this country is an absolute privilege. And so in many ways, a failure to learn English is a demonstration that you're not taking it particularly seriously. And so, look, you're always going to get some nuance and some exceptions. And, we're obviously talking about general policy here. But I think that's number one. Look, I think cousin marriage, I think that's a really easy one. I'd be absolutely in favour of making that illegal. I think arranged marriage is a much more difficult one because how do you, again, if you're passing legislation and you're taking the business of government and legislating seriously, which Reform does, how do you draft that legislation and how does that get proven? A lot of people are introduced by parents or whatever it is. So what I will say is, look, speaking English, absolutely non-negotiable. I don't think I'm actually amazed these things are even really up for debate.
Final question. I was reading an old interview you did in 2018. You said this: I come from a traditional Asian background, and when I go home, my mum asks me when I'm getting married. I just wondered if your mum, 7 years on, is she any closer to getting an answer to that question? I
hope she's not watching this because what's funny is when I called her just to let her know I was going to be returning to Reform before she sort of read about it in the press, and she picked up the phone. Before I said anything, she said, and I think she was sad that I had left, but she said, Zia, at least this means now you have more time to get married. So it's funny you asked the question.
Zia Yusuf, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure.
There we go. That was Zia Yusuf from Reform UK, the former chairman, sat down with our very own Gloria Di Piero, and excellent it was. Let's get some reaction to that huge interview now from the political commentator Andy Williams. Andy, welcome to the show. So, spending less time on Twitter, it's not the real world, plus exhaustion and a heap of racist abuse, which he was quick to point out wasn't from Reform UK supporters. What leapt out of that interview to you, Andy?
Well, firstly, I mean, it is a good lesson that Twitter isn't real life. And I think it would be good advice to everybody to spend less time on Twitter. Now, by the way, I'm not comparing this to the horrendous racist abuse that I've seen Zia Yusuf receive, and I have seen it with my own eyes. I've received some pretty horrific abuse from Reform UK supporters. So I would say, actually, Twitter in general is a bit of a cesspit that we should all be spending less time on. I think in terms of the implications of this change, the long and the short of it is, I don't think it really matters who the chairman of Reform UK is, because most people in the country, 4 years out from a general election, they know who Nigel Farage is. A handful of people might know who Lee Anderson is if they watch GBNews, or they might have seen Richard Tice on the TV. But whether the chairman is David Bull or Zia Yusuf, I think for the public is irrelevant. But what is important is for the operation of the party and the professionalisation of the party. The biggest challenge ahead of Reform, because they've obviously, they're sticking around that 30% mark in the polls, which suggests they're not going anywhere for now. And I think as long as Nigel Farage remains at the helm, ultimately at the helm of the party, they will stick around there. But what they need is to broaden out from Nigel Farage and build a cohort of people who can be front and centre for Reform, out on the airwaves and talking about their policy platform, who are serious, credible people. And at the moment, Reform doesn't have a serious, credible policy platform. So the biggest challenge for David Bull is firstly to recruit 10 or 15 people who are really serious figures who can be front men and women for the party. And secondly, to look at their economic plans and their plans for the economy and be honest about the fact that the numbers don't stack up and that they need to revisit how they're looking to run the British economy. Because if Reform implemented its economic plans tomorrow, we would have a bond market catastrophe, the likes of which Liz Truss couldn't even imagine.
And Andy Williams, first of all, everybody in politics gets abuse. I've been abused for my political beliefs since way before Brexit. It's just sadly part of the currency of social media, particularly on Twitter. It can be a cesspit. It's also not the real world. If it were, Jeremy Corbyn would have been Prime Minister, Hillary Clinton would have been President of the USA, and would still be in the European Union. It's a fantasy land. It is what it is. It's a battle arena. But I want to push you on another point. Isn't it funny how a British Muslim there is talking more common sense on things like the ability to be able to speak English should be a given as a British citizenship, and also talking about getting rid of the practice of cousin marriage. Two things the Labour Party are terrified of even going there for appearing racist. So we hear all this talk about racism, but Zia Yusuf there was speaking more common sense about assimilation than we've ever heard from the Labour Party recently.
Well, I mean, I think the vast majority of people would agree that cousin marriage is something that absolutely shouldn't be allowed. On that point, I don't care about your religious beliefs or otherwise. I actually, I'm not a religious person. I think we should be sensitive to people's beliefs up to a point. But when it comes to things like cousin marriage, which are just, from a medical standpoint, very bad news, we should be absolutely calling that out. And I think it's been really disappointing to see some people standing...
That's the point.
Well, they should. They should.
Yeah, they should, but they don't.
Sorry?
They should, but they don't. And that's the point. They're scared to go near any of these issues in case they appear racist. That's the point. Now, I put it to you that all this tiptoeing around the issue is precisely what's causing the problems.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't be doing that. And I've said time and time again that my greatest frustration with the Labour Party over the past 12 months almost is that for a party with 410 MPs, they're not being bold enough, they're not being radical enough, and they need to stop being scared. Trust me, I would love them to recognise that they actually have an opportunity to be bolder and take more risks and not be beholden to a handful of people on the fringe. Things like cousin marriage are fringe views. And I think when it comes to people speaking English, we could have a debate about how far that requirement should go. My view is that at the very least, if you live in this country, you need to be able to speak a sufficient level of English to interact with the state and with public services. And if you can't, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think you're right, and maybe that's another policy that Keir Starmer might borrow from Reform UK. Andy Williams, always a pleasure to have your opinion on the show. Thank you. Loads more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including how Keir Starmer reacted when asked if he would consider building any new coal power stations to secure the UK's energy independence. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. Britain's News Channel.
News channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:27. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, today, the government announced a golden age of nuclear energy as the Sizewell C power plant on the Suffolk coast gets the go-ahead finally as part of a wider £14 billion investment in the nuclear sector. Now, the construction of Sizewell C apparently will create 10,000 jobs and power around 6 million British homes, with the Energy Secretary Ed Miliband saying that nuclear energy is critical to the government's net zero goals. Well, I'm joined now in the studio. The chopper has landed. Chris Hope was there at Sizewell earlier on. Chris, welcome back to studio.
Good to see you. Good to see you,
have your company. You asked what I thought was a fascinating question of Sir Keir Starmer earlier, poles apart from yesterday, because Nigel Farage had a very different energy pitched. Tell us more.
That's right. So yesterday, Nigel Farage is in Wales, and he's saying, let's open up the pits. There's treasure buried below you. Let's get out. That's the coal. And that's been a policy pushed hard by Richard Tyson before Nigel Farage came back into this party about a year ago. So I thought it was fascinating to hear Keir Starmer in Suffolk today talking up these £14 billion investment in Sizewell C, 2 giant nuclear reactors on the Suffolk coastline. Because clearly there are 2 views there on how we keep warm, on how we drive all the power banks, get this country moving into the 2030s. One from Farage, which is built around coal, one from Keir Starmer, built around nuclear. So there's a kind of coal versus nuclear, if you simplify it down to what it is in essence. And here's what Sir Keir Starmer told me earlier. You're committing billions of pounds to nuclear power, but Nigel Farage wants to open coal mines if he wins power in Wales. Would you block him from doing that?
Well, I want to go forward, not backwards, and Nigel Farage is going backwards. The future is in renewables, in clean power, where we have complete control over our energy. And I'm really pleased with this announcement today, which is a huge project. We haven't done a project like this in this country for 30 years. China and France have been doing it, but not Britain. And I want Britain to be making sure that we've got the secure energy of the future.
You have Sir Keir Starmer looking forwards, not backwards. Now, that's fascinating, I think. You hear from... I think the idea is we gave up on our coal too quickly. We look at other coal-fired gas power, coal-fired power stations in other countries. Wonder why we can't do the same here.
I think Keir Starmer has misread the room on this, and I'll explain why. I think there are 2 visions of the British energy policy future, which go back to the past, one of which the working class get, one of which they just don't understand. It's too technocratic and removed. Nigel Farage sold the vision of cohesive communities in the working class coal belts where largely unskilled labourers had full employment and thriving, prosperous communities, including my dad down the pit, 47 years. There he is, Bob, what a legend. Yeah. And many, many people hark back to that time. I'll be joined by a coal miner, David Craddock, in the next hour from Whitehaven. Whitehaven, of course, key, because Whitehaven has a pit ready to go. It was poleaxed by Ed Miliband. It was poleaxed by Ed Davey. It was poleaxed by Greenpeace. I don't think people understand nuclear power and where these 10,000 jobs are coming from. And if there are 10,000 jobs in there, Chris, it will be for people who went to universities with full degrees, well-educated people. It won't be anything to do with the white working classes who will decide the next general election. And anyway, Nigel Farage has said that there should be small modular nuclear. There should be shale, in a balanced portfolio. I wonder if this technocratic approach by the Labour Party once again cuts out those communities who just want full employment.
Well, you've got a point there. I mean, did your father want to stay down the pit or leave the pit? Because it is difficult work. It's in the dark, it's dirty, it's grimy. I know it has fostered an amazing sense of community in Nottinghamshire, which I'm sure you experienced, but it's not great work, is it, for people? Or maybe he enjoyed it.
My dad would have happily died down the pit, with a pick in his hand, and you speak to coal miners. He goes around Nottingham now, he bumps into coal miners on Saturday nights, and they just hark after a time where they just look back on it almost like it was their version of the war. It's a romanticised past. Sure, it was tough work, it was dirty work, but it was work with honour. It was work that gave a sense of community and a sense of belonging, a national belonging, a patriotic belonging. Digging for Britain, rebuilding after the war. And we could do it again, Chris. This is what I think. If we had an open-minded and broad policy that wasn't driven by net zero, we could have coking coal from Whitehaven, powering those furnaces of British steel. We're importing it from Japan. We're importing it from Australia, from America, with huge carbon footprint, pumping out diesel.
Which we don't see, do we?
To do so.
I'm not entirely clear whether the Whitehaven coal is the appropriate grade for driving those steel furnaces.
It could well be used.
It could be.
And that's, I'll go into this for ages. Some of the coking coal you could say is too polluting. If you take the average sample, it isn't. There's a whole story about how the figures were cooked on that. My point is, why import coal from 3/4 of the way around the planet or the far side to power our furnaces when we could have working class, Well-paid jobs. And I tell you this, I've been to Cumbria. I've been to Durham. I've spoken to locals. I've been to the former Concert Steel Working Man's Club. It's a Tesco car park now. The Working Man's Club is still there. The pictures on the wall of the pride, the working class pride. Every single one of those lads in there would work in a steel plant now if they could. I'm telling you, they would. And I think that is the vision. It's a dream. It could be an expensive dream, but it's a dream that I think the working class buy into.
Because the offer is often call centre work or being retrained on computers in your 40s.
And even then you need a degree, and white working classes are the least likely to attend university.
What we heard from Keir Starmer today is he's looking at a mix of energy, so solar, wind, nuclear, but he doesn't want to include coal into that. And that's why I think you're seeing Reform are saying in some communities where they're going after the Labour vote, there is that feeling, that longing maybe for the past. People look at what their dads did, as you are now, and you are romanticising it, if I may say so, but you are, and you're entitled to. But
the lads who went down the pit, a lot of them, it was hard work, it was dirty work, it was dangerous work, but it was well-paid work, and it was work that gave honour and dignity. And that's what I think the Labour Party used to stand for. Today, when you asked that question, honestly, it made me get a bit choked because I thought...
You're emotional now.
Yeah, I am. Everyone talks about Maggie Thatcher closing down the pits. The reality is a lot of pits were closed by the Labour Party before Thatcher got into power. But something has changed politically. Look at the Red Wall, how they never would have voted for Margaret Thatcher and they voted for the Conservative Party and Boris. Something is in the air. And I think those communities want that dignity giving back to them, and I think our political class simply don't understand the working class.
I mean, the government is pushing manufacturing jobs. They are driving a lot on these new bomb factories, 6 of those planned across the country there. Up in a shipyard last week, we saw Sir Keir Starmer, our colleague Catherine Forster was there with him. They are looking at where they can do manufacturing, but the kind of what you're describing is not the future of this country under Labour, but under Reform government, it's all different. And the battle could well be if they win next year in the Senate. If Reform win in the Senate, and try and grant planning permission for pits that those who want to open in South Wales, what will the Labour government do? That could be a battle over our coal next year.
What we'll get then, I think, will be an almighty political standoff, and the country will see what a country could look like under one lot and what it's like under this lot, and they might think, do you know what, I quite like a bit of that because I remember the romantic old days of full employment. Chris Hope. It's fascinating stuff. Great question, as ever. Thank you very much for joining us. A nuclear reactor yourself, back from Science Will Be. Now, stick around, because up next, are you sick of being ripped off by local councils and big corporations for your parking? Aren't we all? Well, residents in York are in outrage after one of their local parking spots raised its price by an astonishing 500%. Another war on the motorists. That's next.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Following a damp start to the week for many of us, we've seen clearing skies today, the sunshine returning, and it's a fine end to the day for most of us before the heat and humidity builds later this week. Here's the low that brought the rain at the start of this week, but it is now clearing. However, it leaves a legacy of low cloud across southern counties. That cloud tending to thin through the evening and overnight, but some of it will persist along the south coast. A few spots of drizzle couldn't be ruled out. Likewise, cloud returns to Northern Ireland and Western Scotland with a few spots of rain into the Outer Hebrides. But for most, it's a dry and clear night with temperatures dipping to around 6 to 12 Celsius. And it's a fresh feel as we start off Wednesday, but plenty of sunshine around. One exception, northern and northwest Scotland, where the cloud will be thicker, and we'll see this area of light rain passing through parts of the Western Isles as well as the northwest of the mainland. Northern Ireland, thicker cloud here and perhaps a few spots of rain in the far west, but across much of England and Wales it's brighter skies. We do still have some lingering cloud through southern counties of England and South Wales, generally south of the M4. But this will tend to thin and break through the morning, and plenty of sunshine will develop across much of Britain. I think Northern Ireland tending to stay cloudy, where we do have the sunshine and a change in wind direction with warmer air being wafted our way from the south. It's certainly going to feel much warmer, with temperatures reaching 25 to 27 Celsius across central and northwestern parts of England as well as East Wales. Then, as we go through Wednesday nights, as a result of the increased warmth and humidity, we will see some thundery showers developing in the far west and southwest. That will move through, but there's always a threat through Thursday, Friday and Saturday of further thunderstorms and high temperatures.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A720 eastbound at Baberton has a broken down vehicle, urging caution. Maintenance affects both directions of the A55 at junction 23A Penzance, closing eastbound exit and westbound entry slip roads. On the M56 eastbound between junction 15 and 14, a collision has shut 2 of 3 lanes, causing a 50-minute delay. The M6 southbound between junction 10 and 9 in Walsall contends with a breakdown. The M40 northbound near Oxfordshire faces congestion, causing an hour and a half in delays. And on the trains, cross-country industrial action may impact your journey. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:39. You with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now to Northern Ireland, where residents are still reeling following disorder and violence in Ballymena. Hundreds of people took to the streets, where several properties were damaged and at least 2 houses were reportedly set ablaze. Now, the unrest is believed to be related to 2 14-year-old boys appearing in court, where they denied the alleged sexual abuse of a teenage girl. And the pair, who cannot be named for legal reasons due to their age, they were accompanied and assisted by a Romanian translator during their appearance. Well, let's go now to our reporter, Dougie Beattie, who's on site there. Dougie, a volatile and precarious situation. What do we know?
Well, it is, and to be honest about it, Martin, this has been brewing for a long time. I mean, this area has seen break-ins, it has seen rapes, etc., and the population of here have really started kicking back at this, because most of these areas that foreign nationals are being housed in are working class areas, and what has happened is private landlords have bought a lot of these houses and they have rented them out to companies such as Mears, which has a 5-year contract with them in order that they can put foreign nationals into place, and it has really changed the demographic of certain areas, almost pockets. So you almost have some areas that are maybe Chinese, some other areas that are Romanian, etc., etc. And that is the whole way through Britain, and indeed the Republic of Ireland. And the real trouble started in Northern Ireland when Labour decided to do away with the Rwanda plan, because many of those that were illegally in the Republic of Ireland decided to move north, as they did from the north to the south when Rwanda was in place. And they are being moved into these working class areas, and they are being held inside those areas by their own cultures, and there's no integration into the indigenous population. So South Belfast is facing serious problems at the moment. North Belfast is facing serious problems at this moment, and an alleged sexual assault on a young girl here who was 13 years of age on Saturday night. 2 young men, 14 years of age each, were arrested for that and appeared in court. As you say, they had to speak through a Romanian translator, and there was a vigil just up the road here at Harryville. And as the crowd walked down through, they came across the police at the bridge, and they pushed through the police lines. Now, there was real scuffles at the police lines, which got the tempers up, it had the blood boiling, and by the time that this mob came into this street, there was real violence. Behind me is one house that's burned out, another one that's not far away from being burned out. Up the street to my left is about 10 houses with no windows in them, and you can really tell that this isn't over, because all day today, the nationals, the indigenous population that still live in some of the houses in this street have been putting Union Jacks and Ulster flags in their windows in order to tell any other mob that comes through, please don't attack us, we are not foreign nationals. It is a very serious situation, particularly when Northern Ireland is so used to social justice. Some of these areas are controlled by what would have been paramilitaries, and there is no way They may not have been involved in it last night, but there's no way it wouldn't have happened. It would have happened if they didn't know about it or weren't aware about it. So there's real problems with where they are going to put foreign nationals as they come into Northern Ireland.
DBT, fascinating insight there, and thank you for bringing us up to speed there about the situation, precarious and volatile there in Ballymena, Northern Ireland. Thank you, DBT, as ever. Now, meanwhile, residents in York are in outrage this morning after the local council decided to increase some car parking charges by an eye-watering 500%. Well, local businesses on Bishopthorpe Road, or Bishy Road as it's known locally, where the change took place, say it's had an immediate impact, with loyal customers saying that they wouldn't be visiting after prices rose from 80p an hour to an incredible £4.85 to park your flaming car. Let's now speak to our reporter Anna Riley, who is in York for us this afternoon. Anna Riley, so often people feel the motorist is a cash cow that's being milked dry. Certainly feels that way in York.
Afternoon, Martin. Will you join us here in the car park here in Bishopthorpe Road? We've paid £22.50 to park here. Doesn't accept card, and you have to use an app if you've not got that cash on you when you get here. Certainly there has been a lot of uproar, 500% increase. It was 80p to park here just to nip to the shops, nip to the greengrocers. This is an area that was voted Britain's best high street, real thriving place for independent businesses. But with this price rise now, they got a petition together that was signed by over 8,000 people to try and get the council to change it. Now, the council say that they've put these price hikes in place so that we use more of these things. We go on the bikes, we use the buses rather than the cars, but they've acknowledged that the price has been too high. Next month they're going to change that to £3 per hour, but that's still over a 200% increase from that 80p. As I said, £22.50 all day, £11.20 for 2 to 3 hours. So if you're just wanting to go for a coffee, come for a meal, that's an added price on top of the rising cost of living. Now, earlier we've been speaking to drivers here, and this is what they told us about this increased price.
People that are not able to get in easily or just want to come in for an hour or so. I think the exact amount of money that's gone up is really bad.
No, I'm really annoyed about it actually, because I think this is a group of independent shops, independent businesses, and York celebrates it, and yet it's absolutely stuffed it by doing this.
But so today I've had to pretend that I'm unloading some goods just to get a few minutes park up.
That's absolutely disgusting, I think.
Martin, just want to show you this stretch of what's known as Bishy Road, Bishopthorpe Road. You can see here businesses that are doing well. You've got your local greengrocers, you've got your local butchers, coffee shops, a real thriving part just 5 minutes outside of York. So certainly here people are hoping that this increase in prices for parking doesn't impact on local businesses like this that rely on people coming and spending in their shops. The council say that they're going to work now more closely with local businesses and residents, and that they're going to do a review every 3, 6 and 9 months into this price rise here at Bishopthorpe Road car park.
Anna Riley, an excellent report. You know, you talk about getting on your bike. I wonder how many locals in York wish that these councillors would get on their bikes. How on earth are you meant to go and do your shopping if you're a pensioner? Balanced on a bike, on an e-bike, 22 quid to park all day. That's a slap-up fish supper and a few pints. That money that could be spent at that greengrocer's there, money that should be spent on the high street at the butchers, all the local businesses. People will simply stop going to towns, and they wonder why the high street is dying. They just look at motorists like a walking pocket to be picked. That's the feeling that surely many people will have, and this seems to be commonplace up and down the length and breadth of the nation. If you drive a car, we're going to take your dosh. Anna Riley, very thought-provoking stuff, brilliant. Thank you for joining us there live from Bishy Road in York. Now, if you can search some holiday sun, perhaps don't go to York, but here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of summer warmth and sunny skies over the Mediterranean at the moment. A few thunderstorms brewing up over northern parts of Spain and temperatures on the rise in Italy. Sunny skies for most of the Greek islands. Not too hot here as the breeze is coming down from the north. Temperatures ticking up in Rome into the mid-30s perhaps by the end of the week. There are those heavy showers across northern Spain, parts of northern Portugal also seeing some downpours. But Lisbon, I think, set fair and temperatures, as I said, rising into the mid-30s in Rome later this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Can't help but look at this. I know there's steam coming out of Anne's ears that he would want to change his surname from Mountbatten Windsor to Spencer. I sort of wonder whether it might have been quite a good thing, Richard, if he wanted to do it, in the sense that it creates a line, doesn't it? It's a bit of a red line between him and the royal family.
Well, it certainly is quite extraordinary. I mean, reading this, because Mountbatten Windsor, since 1960, this has been the surname available to members of the royal family or descendants of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Mountbatten was the surname that Prince Philip took when he became a British citizen in 1947. And, of course, Windsor was the brilliant propaganda. This was during the First World War, when the royal family changed their name from Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to the very English Windsor. But this is completely weird. I mean, you wonder whether he thought this or whether, in fact, it was just some idea that he was discussing, because, I mean, for example, Lilibet, and remember the Sussexes play a lot with names, because this was the Queen's personal nickname, and they christened Lilibet in her honour, and supposedly she gave permission. But this has been highly disputed. She would become Lilibet Diana Spencer. Now, I mean, you look at that and bringing back memories of Princess Diana, we know that Prince Harry is devoted to her memory, but this would be extraordinary.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9 minutes before 5. You're at 5 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a group of MPs are trying to secure our right to criticise any and all religions, following claims that a blasphemy law could prosecute those that criticise certain religions or religious practices. Now, the Freedom of Expression Bill is trying to make sure that criticising religion should be exempt from harassment laws. But some have claimed that the current Public Order Act is increasingly being used instead as a blasphemy law to protect Islam from criticism. Well, we can now speak with the writer and the broadcaster, Candice Holdsworth. Candice, always a pleasure to have your company. So this is ostensibly 10 Conservative MPs and Rupert Lowe who have got together and said we shan't have blasphemy laws in this country. Do you think they've got a point?
I have begun to think that. I mean, I always used to think that our common law was sufficient to guard against infringements of free speech. You know, we would deal with very specific, we would deal with things that were most likely to arise, and we lived in a very tolerant country where we didn't have to worry about people doing things to each other, so it was okay. But I do think that the problem is that I think the threat to free speech in this country is often coming from people on the left. I think that is true. They're very censorious, and they don't respect that that they make value judgments about what people will say, and they forget how subjective those judgments are. And I think we've seen it time and time again with lots of controversial cases, like with this Hamid Choskin case, you know, which has become so instructive. So maybe we do need something more explicit. Maybe we need explicit protections like the US has.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, burning a copy of the Quran, you could say it's pretty dumb, you could say it's offensive, you could say it could be outright dangerous. But the point is, should it be illegal? And it appears recently that's what the British courts found. And these politicians say that is a step too far.
Yeah, I mean, look, I also, as a journalist, I have a visceral reaction to the burning of a book. I will always rather debate something, contest something. I'll never set it on fire. But I think we generally have to look at things in context, and I think that's really, really important. We have to use our judgments and our discretion. And he did that very specifically in the context of a protest. I mean, he's quite a fierce secularist. He comes from Turkey. He feels that it's taken a nasty Islamist turn in that country. And he thought a lot about what sort of protest he wanted to have, and he chose that particular one. It's actually very thoughtful. He wrote a piece in the Spectator about it. So I think we have to consider that in that context. You know, I mean, he's not some, you know, fundamentalist who's going around ignorantly doing things. And I think we do have to think about that.
Sure. Thanks for joining us. Excellent as ever, Candice Holsworth. Thank you. Now, stick with me because I've got a huge interview coming up next with Dame Priti Patel. She'll be live with me in the studio with one of the Chagosians that she is supporting as she continues her legal battle against the government on giving up the Chagos Island, which she calls a surrender. That's next. And, of course, there'll be that Zia Yusuf exclusive. But before all of that, here is your weather forecast.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Following a damp start to the week for many of us, we've seen clearing skies today, the sunshine returning, and it's a fine end to the day for most of us before the heat and humidity builds later this week. Here's the low that brought the rain at the start of this week, but it is now clearing. However, it leaves a legacy of low cloud across southern counties. That cloud tending to thin through the evening and overnight, but some of it will persist along the south coast. A few spots of drizzle couldn't be ruled out. Likewise, cloud returns to Northern Ireland and Western Scotland with a few spots of rain into the Outer Hebrides. But for most, it's a dry and clear night with temperatures dipping to around 6 to 12 Celsius. And it's a fresh feel as we start off Wednesday, but plenty of sunshine around. One exception, northern and northwest Scotland, where the cloud will be thicker, and we'll see this area of light rain passing through parts of the Western Isles as well as the northwest of the mainland. Northern Ireland, thicker cloud here and perhaps a few spots of rain in the far west, but across much of England and Wales it's brighter skies. We do still have some lingering cloud through southern counties of England and South Wales, generally south of the M4. But this will tend to thin and break through the morning, and plenty of sunshine will develop across much of Britain. I think Northern Ireland tending to stay cloudy, where we do have the sunshine and a change in wind direction with warmer air being wafted our way from the south. It's certainly going to feel much warmer, with temperatures reaching 25 to 27 Celsius across central and northwestern parts of England as well as East Wales. Then, as we go through Wednesday nights, as a result of the increased warmth and humidity, we will see some thundery showers developing in the far west and southwest. That will move through, but there's always a threat through Thursday, Friday and Saturday of further thunderstorms and high temperatures.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24, sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Leicestershire, expect delays on the M1 northbound due to a lane closure caused by a collision. In Hertfordshire, a collision on the M25 clockwise caused 2 lane closures and a 40-minute delay. The A38 westbound in Devon is closed until 8:15 tonight. Prepare for congestion on the A50 eastbound in Staffordshire. Both directions on the A55 at junction 23A are restricted due to maintenance. And on the trains, cross-country industrial action may impact your journey between Preston and Blackpool. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For a chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Reform UK unveiled their new chairman, Dr. David Bull, the former TV presenter and Brexit Party MEP, replaces Zia Yusuf, who quit following an internal spat over the party's stance on banning the burqa. And a school shooting in the Austrian city of Graz has resulted in the deaths of 10 and with 28 others, students and teachers injured on the scene. GB News will bring you all of the latest as we get it. And over £14 million of investment has been announced today for the construction of Sizewell C nuclear power station in Suffolk. Now is the government finally making the UK energy independent. And to Los Angeles, the city wakes up following yet another night of civil unrest, with thousands taking to the streets in protest of Donald Trump's deportation plan. The president has deployed the National Guard and is sending in the Marines against the wishes of the governor of California as the United States faces yet another public backlash. Who's right? Who's in the wrong? That's all coming up in your next hour. Well, the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. In a few moments' time, I'll be joined in the studio by Dame Priti Patel, live in the studio because there has been another last-minute bid to try and reverse the government's so-called Chagos Surrender Island deal. There's a motion being put through Parliament, plus a dramatic intervention from the United Nations. Remember, we were told the United Nations supported this move. Might not be the case. It turns out a few of Sir Keir Starmer's lawyer colleagues in the UN might not agree with the Labour Party. I'll also be joined by Vanessa Kalu, who, of course, has been on this show many times. One of those Chagosians who's been fighting since day one for the sovereignty, the independence and the right for Chagosians to remain in the Chagos Islands. They'll be with me in the studio next. Get in touch all the usual ways. GBNews.com/your say is the way to do it. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Just after 4 o'clock, our top stories. The Austrian Chancellor has described the deadly school shooting earlier as a dark day in the history of his country. Officials have confirmed there were 6 female and 3 male victims, adding that 5 teenagers and 2 adults are currently undergoing surgery in hospital. The suspected perpetrator, who also died at the scene, was a 21-year-old Austrian man from Graz who used 2 guns to carry out the attack. Officers believe the former school pupil killed himself in the toilet. Well, earlier, Mr. Stalker described the attack as a national tragedy that strikes at the very heart of our country. He says there are no words for the pain and grief Austria is feeling. A national minute of silence will take place at 10 a.m. local time tomorrow, followed by 3 days of national mourning. The UK is formally sanctioning 2 far-right Israeli ministers over their comments about Gaza. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the security minister, a convicted racist, has encouraged the forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza to third countries. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has approved the expansion of West Bank settlements, which are illegal under international law, and has campaigned against humanitarian aid in Gaza, saying he wouldn't allow even a grain of wheat into the territory despite UN warnings about famine. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has previously described their comments as monstrous.
Today we are announcing sanctions against those individuals because we have been absolutely clear this has to stop, and we stand for a 2-state solution, and the settler violence that we've seen in the West Bank particularly is entirely unacceptable and must stop.
Greta Thunberg's arrived in France after being deported by Israel for attempting to break the country's naval blockade of Gaza.
We made this trip with a smaller boat and a smaller crew because that's all that we had, because they bombed the last boat. And as I said, this is about bringing as much humanitarian aid as we possibly could.
Well, she's on her way back to Sweden after the deportation. Her and a group of 11 other activists were picked up on board the UK-flagged Madeleine off the coast of Egypt on Monday. They had been attempting to take a symbolic amount of aid into Gaza. The Chancellor has hailed a new era of nuclear power in Britain after announcing a multi-billion-pound investment in Suffolk. Rachel Reeves says Sizewell C will create 10,000 jobs and enough energy for 6 million homes. The Prime Minister says it demonstrates the government's commitment to developing the sector.
Put this down today is really important. It's a change, not just an important decision for the future. It's a change of mindset. No more dithering, no more delay, no more being unclear about what we're going to do. A real statement of intent as we go forward.
Reform UK have announced their new chairman after the shock resignation of Zia Yusuf last week.
Comes into this job with terrific verve, energy, enthusiasm, and it's going to be great fun. Dr. David Bull.
I am thrilled, I am delighted to take up this position of chairman.
Well, David Bull, a former deputy chairman of the party, a long-term ally of Nigel Farage, perhaps best known as a broadcaster and TV host. Police in Northern Ireland say a number of properties have been damaged during disorder sparked by an alleged sexual assault in the town of Ballymena. Masked youths were seen throwing missiles towards armoured police officers who were called to an anti-immigration protest in the Clonavon Terrace area. That's the site of the alleged sexual assault on a girl over the weekend. 2 14-year-olds appeared in court in connection with the assault. They denied the charges. And commuters at King's Cross in London got a treat this morning, and perhaps something of a surprise. 100 Coldstream Guards boarded a train as part of their 375th anniversary celebrations. They were dressed in iconic scarlet tunics and bearskin hats. Not a whole lot of room, headroom in the carriage, or indeed room for extra luggage there. But the good news, sunshine greeted them upon their arrival in Berwick-upon-Tweed. That's the regiment's birthplace. Now, it's in stark contrast to the 5-week trek the Guards made on foot through heavy snow from Berwick to London back in 1660. Those are your headlines. More from the GB newsroom a little bit later.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron Armstrong. Now let's get started with the Chagos Island deal, which is continuing to generate huge controversy. But now there could be a last-minute reprieve because the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel, has put on record her solution. She's presented a bill which she claims will protect British taxpayers and promote the rights of British Chagosians, who she says have been betrayed by the Labour Party. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio live in Westminster by Dame Priti Patel, the Shadow Foreign Secretary. And I'm also alongside the Chagosian community leader and great friend of the show, Vanessa Kalu. Welcome to you both. Dame Priti Patel, let's start with you. There have been so many twists and turns in this. There have been so many chances of a last-minute reprieve. You've written a bill. Tell us the basis which you believe there could be a legal challenge.
Well, look, first of all, this is the bill that I have presented to Parliament today. And, Martin, as you said in your opening remarks, this touches on sovereignty of the British Indian Overseas Territory, but also Vanessa's here, and very much about the Chagosian community in the United Kingdom, who clearly are British and want to remain British, but also who have not been consulted or engaged by this absolutely appalling government. And as you know, we're in a 21-day process now. It's called a CRAG treaty process. You remember last time I was on your show, I think Keir Starmer had a sort of moment of drama where he told us if we didn't agree with it, we were aligned with Russia and all the adversaries of the United Kingdom.
The Ayatollah.
Exactly, with the mullahs of Tehran. So that was, the clock started to tick, 21 days, which is this treaty that comes to Parliament. And guess what? In pure autocratic fashion, the Labour government is denying anyone a debate in Parliament on this, which is just absolutely wrong. So my solution was to put a bill, table a bill, which we've done, and Vanessa and the community were there in the gallery watching the presentation of the bill. We want a bill to go forward so we can have an open, honest, transparent debate, because viewers always know they are absolutely right to be concerned about this. It's their money at the end of the day. £30 billion, British taxpayers' money. Guess what? We want that spent in our country. And the way this government is spending money, which we'll hear about tomorrow with their spending review, this is putting more debt, more borrowing, more burden on British taxpayers, and that is simply not right. So this is all about the political choices Keir Starmer and his little cronies have made. You know, all these sort of left-wing lawyers following an advisory opinion, not a legally binding opinion, and the jeopardy that this now means for Biot, our sovereignty, the sovereignty of Biot, the Chagos Islands, and, of course, the wonderful, wonderful Chagosian communities that we have in the United Kingdom as well as in Chagos.
A lovely caveat to bring in Vanessa Kalu. Vanessa, you've been so enthusiastic throughout this entire process. I honestly think if you could bottle the spirit of your community, we could all be millionaires like Del Boy. On a serious point, you've had your ups and downs, but this seems like another breakthrough. Tell us, are you hopeful there could be a result for the Chagosians?
Yes, I'm still hopeful, and with all the Chagosians, we're still hoping that this situation will be behind us soon, because this is the time that we need to resolve the unfairness that Labour Party did in the 60s to 70s, forcibly remove all the ancestors who were British citizens to send them to Mauritius. This was unfair, and this is a crime toward humanity. And now, in 2025, it looks like we feel they are doing the same thing again with our community, with the British people, the British overseas. I always said if they try to have at least, have a decision to remove one of the British overseas, they can do for all the British overseas. This is a danger what the Prime Minister is doing at the moment and not respecting the self-determination of the Sagosian. And I'm so grateful that Dan Priti Patel and Andrew Rosendale, the Conservatives, get together and then put a bill for try to stop this madness is happening at the moment. We are supporting our Sagosian, British and British overseas territory. We are supporting this bill. We trying everything to stop that deal and then respect the right of the Sagosian.
And in a plot twist that perhaps nobody saw coming, there's been a dramatic development this afternoon, as we've been reported on Guido Fawkes, that United Nations experts have railed against Sir Keir Starmer's position. Lawyers at the UN, who you might think would be actually in agreement with his position, are saying that on positions of sovereignty, this deal, it's called the Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent, fails to protect the rights of Chagosian people, including their rights to return to Diego Garcia, effective remedy and reparations, and their cultural rights. That's precisely what you've been saying, precisely what you've been saying all along.
Yes.
Wow, who'd have thought, plot twist, the UN doesn't agree with Sir Keir Starmer?
I mean, there's a huge irony to this, certainly because it's the UN and, certain specialist groups. The UN, obviously, spent a lot of time criticising UK domestic governments and policies in the past. But I think, Martin, look, there's also a fundamental point to all of this right now. What Labour are doing is wrong. But actually, it speaks to a wider problem now of British foreign policy and Britain's place in the world. Wherever David Lammy travels and Keir Starmer, they just get out the white flag of surrender. Every time they negotiate on behalf of the United Kingdom, Britain and British taxpayers, they just roll over and they give up. The sums that have been involved with the Mauritian government, they had their budget last week on Thursday. And, of course, I did follow it with some detail. They were boasting about how much foreign money they're getting from us. So guess what? Pay down their debt. So that's bad enough, and that's an insult to us. But Britain's standing in the world right now is completely being denuded because of the antics of this government. They don't stand head and shoulders strong anymore in terms of our influence, our reputation. They just want to give everything away and, bring this great indignity of British taxpayers paying for it. And they want to hide constantly behind other countries. And I just don't think that's acceptable. Britain is not like that as a nation. We're proud of our place in the world, the allies that we have, our reputation, and I'm afraid these guys are just running us down.
Vanessa, could I ask you, and that astonishing comment about those who are against this deal include the leader of the opposition, Nigel Farage, Iran, Russia, Vladimir Putin, and China, except we heard last week that the Chinese embassy to Mauritius is actually delighted, and that, more than that, they're pumping millions of dollars into Mauritius with its Belt and Road taxes, ostensibly infrastructural takeover, the likes of what we saw across lots of Africa without a shot being fired. So is there a worry from the Chagosians that actually China is now getting very, very close to Mauritius, and that could have implications that would prevent you guys from ever being allowed home?
Exactly. So Mauritius is a country that we don't trust, is corrupt, and our community population have been living in second class, as everyone knows. So we know that Mauritius own money. They are in debt, so they will do everything for them to get money. So they can't put everything on a population like Chagos, a British people. Always we are facing the same thing. They use us, disrespect our right for them to be able to have money to pay for their debt. That is unfair. This is what government is supposed to do, listen to their public. I'm sure everywhere I go in UK to protest, all the people, all the British people agree with me when I say the history, what happening on the news and what happening in our homeland and everything, what is doing at the moment, Keir Starmer is doing. They agree with me. They don't want their contribution of UK tax to go away to another country. We have a lot of situation here. Homeless is an issue that we need to resolve in the UK. And we have the people getting poorer and poorer. Work at the moment, they are... Everything that they are putting, the labour, they are putting on the table, they're putting for people outside the country to be able to come in the UK, have working and nice. But what happened us living here and working and try to build like a community and grow up our children?
OK, Vanessa, I mean, you should be a politician. You should get into it. On a serious point, a lot of people have been saying, what next? You know, first, Chagos, is there a danger of the chainsaw-wielding president of Argentina eyeing up the Falklands? What about the Rock of Gibraltar?
Well,
where does this end?
I don't think we should conflate Chagos with, other areas at all. I just don't think that's right. Fundamentally, we've got a government that is not standing up for Britain and Britain's place in the world. You mentioned China. I just think we should also mention Russia. Well, look at what Russia's doing in Ukraine right now. But the Mauritian government signed a fishing partnership with the Russians only about 3 weeks ago. And yet we still had Keir Starmer maligning all of us, including the Chagosian community, if I may say so, because we are speaking out against this. Because, of course, he's the autocrat and it's his way and nobody else's way. So I think fundamentally, you've asked what's next, Martin. We have to continue calling out this government for the wrong choices, the wrong decisions that they have taken, but actually the slight that they are doing to the Chagosian community and people, I just think that's outrageous. Hence the irony of the United Nations, with the human rights body actually quite rightly reflecting the fact that voices and rights are being dismissed. If they're doing this to the Chagosian community, who else are they going to come after next? And I have to say, this Labour government, they're worse than tin is. They are not interested in the British people. They're not. Vanessa's already said this. They're not interested in working people in this country. I can tell you that. They're putting their taxes up and treating everybody as if they're a total irrelevance. That is our job in Parliament, to stop that from happening and to hold this awful government to account. And I can guarantee this now, through this bill, and there will be a debate in the House of Lords on the 30th of June. The Lords will get it. We won't get it in the Commons. We will continue to press this, because if Labour get away with this, you're right to ask what next, but actually it's a complete disdain to democracy, debate, British values, our place in the world, and that's what we're talking about right now. That's what we have to fight for.
OK, thank you. And the final word to you, Vanessa Callow. Your brother, Missy Mandarin, an astonishing character, fought for this country in that very seat, reduced me to tears with the passion. He said he would rather die. He would rather die than see Chagos go to Mauritius. Clearly, the resolve of the Chagosians is not being bowed. Are you hopeful that you will get that victory you so rightly have been pursuing?
To be honest with you, it's not only me. All the Chagosians in our generation now, we want that to stop. We want the public to listen to us. And then the right thing is stop that unfairness now, one for all, because it can't continue more than 50, 55 years that is continued. That needs to stop. The Chagosians have the right to choose to be British, and they are British, and the self-determination, they need to process it as soon as possible. This government, Labour government, Keir Starmer, he needs to stop this madness and agree with that bill that Dan Priti Patel just put on today.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Vanessa Callow, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Likewise. Well, now next we'll be heading over to the City of Angels. Well, not much angelic behaviour going there next, because the residents of Los Angeles, on how they're managing after the 4th consecutive day of riots came to a close last night. And there could be more on the horizon as thousands of troops are piling in to Los Angeles. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:24. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, we're counting down to your best summer so far with £54,321. That's right, £54,321 in tax-free moolah. And that could be won. It could all be yours. It's the biggest cash Great British giveaway to date. And it could be yours ahead of tonight's massive lottery. Here's the details you need to enter.
It's our biggest cash prize to date, and you could win it. £54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
£54,321 could make you our biggest cash winner to date. For a chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck with that. Now over to the States, because the Pentagon is to deploy 700 Marines to Los Angeles after Donald Trump promised to take a hard line on the protesters that have taken to the streets in the west coast of America. Well, hundreds of Americans protested outside a detention centre where suspected illegal immigrants are being held after federal raids created mass outrage across the state, well, at least amongst Democrats. Now, in response, California's Attorney General has promised to battle Donald Trump in the courts after announcing his intention to sue the administration. It's all kicking off in America, not just with the rioters, but also with the politicians. Let's now speak with Matthew Hurt, who's a Republican commentator who comes to us from Arlington, Virginia. Matthew, a pleasure to have your company. It seems astonishing to people in Britain that there could be people taking to the streets of the United States seemingly on the side of illegal immigrants. Where's the surprise in the fact that a president who campaigned on the ticket of clamping down on illegal immigration is simply making good for his word? Why are they surprised?
Well, Martin, it's great to be with you. And it is summer riot season in the United States, where communists and leftists are upending the government in their communities, particularly in Los Angeles. Absolutely outrageous. President Trump made a strong decision. He campaigned on securing the border. He has done that. He is working on that. And in cities like Los Angeles, he's now deploying 700 United States Marines and 2,000 National Guard troops to help keep that promise. And on the streets of Los Angeles, we see illegal aliens and their allies waving Mexican flags and protesting in opposition to America just a couple of hours north of the border.
And the political battle that's broken out is incredible. Gavin Newsom, the governor, saying Donald Trump is deranged. Donald Trump replying, Newsom is destroying one of our great states. He should be arrested. A civil war would happen if you left it to people like him. And Matthew Hurt, isn't that fascinating? Because Newsom might fancy himself as a runner and rider in a future presidential race. Is this a glimpse of what America could look like?
Governor Newsom absolutely wants to run for president in 2028, but he and other left-wing governors and elected officials across the country just 5 years ago arrested peaceful Americans for simply leaving their homes during the COVID-19 lockdowns. And so this is a shock. It's a slap in the face to the American people for standing with illegal aliens and for threatening the president, who is just trying to secure the borders and uphold the law of this country. It is absolutely outrageous, and I think it's a non-starter for the American voters if Newsom were to decide to run in 2028.
Because a lot of us from this side of the pond were also watching on in astonishment at those mostly peaceful riots from Black Lives Matter that we saw ripping through Portland and other towns. And the Biden administration, the liberal mainstream media in America seems to have no problem with that. And yet now this is the apocalypse. It's the end of the world, and Donald Trump is the one causing it.
Well, and Martin, the mainstream media in the United States is doing the exact same thing they did in 2020. On CNN, on MSNBC, they're saying that these are mostly peaceful protests.
Matthew Hurt, I'm afraid I must interject because that man, Donald Trump, is speaking. Let's cross over.
These are paid troublemakers. They get money. And when you take a look at what they do, where they show up and everyone's saying, what's he doing? He's pounding the curbs. This one guy's pounding the curb, breaking the curb, and handing big pieces of granite, in some cases it's granite and concrete to other people, and they're running out with it, and then we watch the other people, and they try and throw it into the face of the soldiers, throw it into the face of the police, and they hurt some people very badly. They go up on bridges, they drop it down on the cars as the cars are moving. They're not breaking the curb because they're doing a demolition service. They're breaking it to hand out to people as a weapon. It's bad stuff. I've never seen that before.
Mr. President, how soon do you want to see FEMA eliminated? And what's your message to the governors about how much more in expense is going to fall to states?
Yeah, well, it's not going to be so much to states. We're going to give out less money. We're going to give it out directly. It'll be from the president's office. We'll have somebody here. Could be Homeland Security, but we're going to give it out through a method where it's given out. As an example, I just gave out $71 million to a certain state. They were looking to do about 120. They were very happy with the 71 million. We did a little cutting, and they were very happy with it. So we're going to do it much differently. We think after this, Christy, I'd say after the hurricane season, we'll start phasing it in.
Yes, sir. You set up a FEMA council over the next couple of months. We'll be working on reforms and what FEMA will look like in the future as a different agency, as under the Department of Homeland Security, to the President's vision. And it will empower governors to go out and respond to emergency situations. And that what the President does best is to make sure that the taxpayers are only fulfilling the need to which is appropriate, and that people are responsible to respond to their own people closest to home. So
if a certain state, as an example, gets hit by a hurricane or tornado, that's what a governor, a governor should be able to handle it. And frankly, if they can handle it, the aftermath, then maybe they shouldn't be governor.
And Mr. President, when is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom?
A day ago. Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave him a little additional help, you would have, Los Angeles would be burning right now. Los Angeles would be not a lot different than what you saw take place in California and Los Angeles just a little while ago. And, you got to remember, we have the Olympics coming. And we don't want people looking at Los Angeles like it would have been. It would have been bad. Last night, they had total control. If we didn't have the military in there, the National Guard, and then we also sent in some Marines, we had some bad people. We have people, they look in your face and they spit right in your face. They're animals. And these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. They're agitators. They're paid. Do you think somebody walks up to a curb and starts hammering pieces out, has all the equipment necessary, and starts handing it out to people to use as a weapon? These are paid insurrectionists or agitators or troublemakers. You can call it whatever you want. And we ended it, and we have in custody some very bad people. Some very bad people.
Mr. President.
Did you see the guy throwing the rocks at the police cars as they went by and crushing their windows and endangering our police? We're not going to let that happen, yeah.
Pardon me. Mr. President, on those Marines, Governor Newsom has described them as political pawns. I'm curious for your reaction to that and what you see as the Marines' role and what are their rules of engagement?
All I want is safety. I just want a safe area. Los Angeles was under siege until we got there. The police were unable to handle it. You can speak to the chief. He said it on television 3 nights ago. He said, this is more than we can handle. They said that. And the LA police, I know a lot of the police in LA, they're good, they're great people, but they're given instructions not to do this, not to do that. But in this case, they were trying their best. They were not able to handle it. It was out of control. When we got there, and you have to remember, I'd been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and they just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on, got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down 7 days, and I said, I don't care. The governor, who's a governor that just happened to be running for vice president, a total, you talk about an incompetent governor, he's an incompetent person. That he was picked, well, I was actually very happy he was picked for other reasons. But this guy wouldn't call the National Guard. And we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it. But that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want to do it. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early, we sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground.
The Marines is, a lot of people think, an escalatory step, though. These are guys who fight wars. Are you at all concerned that things could get out of hand with Marines?
When I see people throwing concrete into cars, when I see people, the kind of people that I saw on your network doing danger to the police and to the military and to the National Guard, no, it's okay. You know, you start running out of people when you have 2,000 people from this a National Guard standpoint, we have a very big military, but the National Guard, they needed a little extra help, and we sent them a little, and we did a great job last night. We had, well, you had a lot of cars go up in smoke and flame, and a lot of bad scenes, but it was pretty minor by comparison. This morning it's very calm. We'll see what happens later. But they know if they go there, they're not going to get anywhere because we have the National Guard there. We backed it up with a number of Marines, yeah.
Mr. President, do you agree with Governor Abbott soon signing legislation to mandate the 10 Commandments in school classrooms?
Having to do with what?
Governor Abbott is soon going to sign legislation to mandate displays of the 10 Commandments in school classrooms. Do you support him?
I have to take a look at it. I'm going to have to look at it.
Will the National Guard be in California indefinitely? How long will they be there until you think?
Until there's no danger. It's easy. Look, it's common sense. You ask me that question. When there's no danger, they'll leave. You would have had a horrible situation had I not sent them in. Horrible. You'd be reporting on a lot of death and a lot of destruction that's not going to take place. I think if you look, every night it got less and less. They were met with very strong force, the bad people, the bad, sick people that do what they do. But these are paid people in many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases. And they really are, they're agitators.
I was wondering if you had any response to Mexican President Sheinbaum, who condemned the violence there. Have you been in touch with her at all?
Said what?
I was wondering if you had any response to what Mexican President Claudine Sheinbaum said in response.
What'd she say?
She condemned the violence in LA.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah. Have you been in touch with her at all?
Well, you think I don't condemn it? I condemn the violence in LA, ladies and gentlemen, but I also stopped the violence in LA. And by doing what I did, I stopped the violence in LA. And that would have been, I think, maybe I'd ask Christie to speak to that. That would have been an unbelievable tragedy. We would be talking, I don't know that would even be here right now. It would have been so bad. I'd probably maybe be out there. I don't know, but Christie, could you speak to that?
Absolutely. So in 2020, I was a governor of a neighboring state to Tim Walz and watched him let his city burn. And the president and I have talked about this in the past, and he was not going to let that happen to another city and to another community where a bad governor made a bad decision. So Claudia Sheinbaum came out and encouraged more protests in LA, and I condemn her for that. She should not be encouraging violent protests that are going on. If people are allowed to peacefully protest, but the violence that we're seeing is not acceptable, and it's not going to happen in America. This president is standing up for the average American who wants to walk their child to school every day safely, run their small business, and provide for their families. That's the action that he's taking. He has every authority under the Constitution to send these National Guard under Title X into these communities and make sure that operations go smoothly, that law enforcement officers are protected, that they can continue to do their work without fear of being injured or killed or disrespected, and that they can go home to their families at night. So I'm incredibly proud of the president for activating the National Guard and for sending in these Marines, because these Marines are specifically trained to meet the need that we have on the ground in LA right now. And Governor Newsom has done a disservice to the state of California for many years. The people there should never elect him into a leadership position ever again. He clearly
cannot. The governor's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. When it comes to his railroad that he's building, where it's like 30 times over budget, nobody's ever seen anything like it. Now it doesn't even go to San Francisco and LA. It's way short of it. After years of work and overruns like nobody's, those contractors are some of the wealthiest people in the world, I guarantee you that, because that money goes to those contractors. They just did a number on the wallet of the people of California. That train, you should look at that train. That is the greatest. I've never seen cost overruns. I've seen cost overruns and great incompetence over my life. I've never seen anything like that.
Mr. President, these protests obviously started in reaction to these large-scale ICE operations in Los Angeles. Should people expect to see similar operations in the rest of the country?
Yeah.
And will similar protests see similar response?
As you know, we're moving murderers out of our country that were put here by Biden or the auto pen. The auto pen really did. I mean, the people, whether it's Lisa Monaco or whoever operated the auto pen, these are criminals. The people are criminals that allowed these criminals into our country. And I don't think that Biden knew what the hell he was doing. I don't think he even knew about it. But when they opened up our borders for the whole world to come in, yeah, we're going to get them out. We're getting them out. We're starting to get acknowledgement from the courts that, you know, there's a system. They come in without courts and they go out, they want trials and everything else. I think that's starting to work out now. Judges are starting to see what a terrible situation it is. Many of those people that you saw on television last night are criminals that were allowed into our country by Biden. And they want to stay, and we don't want them. And they come from jails, and they come from mental institutions, and they come from all over the world, not just South America. And we're not going to let them stay. And this is the first, perhaps, of many, or perhaps, you know, if we didn't attack this one very strongly, you'd have them all over the country. But I can inform the rest of the country that when they do it, if they do it, they're going to be met with equal or greater force than we met right here. We did a great job. The people, you, Christy, and Tom Holman, and all of the people, Pete Hegseth, all of the people involved did an amazing job. We stopped a disaster. And it looks like a planned disaster, not just, this didn't just happen. They had weapons, they had tools, they had everything you needed. I mean, they were throwing iced water in bottles, in glass bottles, at officers and at soldiers. These are, you could not use the word insurrection, but you could also use the word, these are very dangerous people, they're bad people. They were met with heavy force and they folded. And they may be there a little bit tonight, they may be there a little bit, but it seems to be getting less and less because they're going there and they're met with a very heavy force. And if they weren't, you would have that city right now would be on fire. It would be burning down. The rest of it, what's left over, because the other fire was started because they wouldn't allow water into LA. They wouldn't allow water into California because they had it all shifted out to the Pacific Ocean. And I turned it around. And I told them to do it in my first term, and they didn't do it. We had COVID, and they didn't do it. And I told them to do it. We did it in the second. Now we have billions of gallons of water flowing down. But Newsom should have done this. He's an incompetent man, an incompetent governor. Okay, any other questions?
Mr. President, any message to adversaries as the Army kicks off 250-year birthday celebration?
I just think it's amazing. We're going to have a fantastic June 14th parade, Flag Day. It's going to be an amazing day. We have tanks, we have planes, we have all sorts of things. And I think it's going to be great. We're going to celebrate our country for a change. You know, recently, as you know, with World War II, the victory of World War II, I called up France and they were celebrating the victory. Well, we helped them a lot, as you know. I don't have to get into that. But I called up other countries. They were all celebrating the victory. We're the only country that didn't celebrate the victory. And we're the one that won the war. Okay, if it wasn't for us, that war, you would be speaking German right now, okay? We won the war, and you might be speaking Japanese too. I mean, you might be speaking a combination of both. We won the war, and we're the only country that didn't celebrate it. And we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press.
Thank you.
Press. Let's move out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was an astonishing press conference there. Donald Trump at the White House talking about how he called the rioters in Los Angeles paid insurrectionists, rioters doing a terrible job. They were spitting in your face. They're agitators. They're paid, and they want to see Los Angeles and America burn. Well, let's cross back live now to Matthew Hurt, a Republican commentator who joins us from Arlington, Virginia, who listened into that. Matthew, astonishing rhetoric. And what we have here, as well as the battle on the street, we now have a huge political battle between Donald Trump and the governor of Los Angeles, California, Gavin Newsom.
Well, Martin, you're absolutely right. And what your viewers saw is the president in sheer form. He's a fantastic communicator on this issue on immigration. Secretary Kristi Noem has done an excellent job. President Trump is obviously following this very closely in Los Angeles with the deployment of 700 U.S. Marines and 2,000 National Guard troops to keep the people of Los Angeles safe from, as you said and President Trump said, paid agitators and people who would do harm to Los Angeles and to this country. So bravo to President Trump for taking these questions from the American press and staying firm when it comes to protecting our country, securing the border, and making our streets safe.
Matthew Hurt, when Donald Trump there said, make no mistake, I phoned him, he said, I spoke to him a day ago. This is Governor Newsom. I told him he's doing a terrible job. Los Angeles would be burning now like the wildfires if I hadn't sent in the National Guard. He then talked, looking ahead, about the Olympics coming to America, and he said, what does this paint as a picture? He just doubled down, calling him an incompetent governor, an incompetent man.
Yes, and as Los Angeles is host to Olympics coming up, it is very important that safety not only of American citizens, but of the people who will travel to the United States to participate in the Olympic Games and in the ceremonies and activities around that. And we simply can't have anti-American communists and leftists on the streets in Los Angeles, as President Trump said, breaking off sections of the sidewalk to throw at law enforcement agents who are simply trying to keep our streets and our community safe.
And he was talking about how we've arrested a lot of people. We've seen a lot of cars go up in smoke. And he just kept hammering home this point, Matthew Hurt, the clear message. This is organised. It's orchestrated. People are paid. And he said it's always the radical left. They simply want to see America burn.
Absolutely, Martin. And every time we see these, like I said at the beginning of this segment, it is summer riot season. It's predictable in the United States now. The left will take to the streets and set fires and destroy property and harm innocent civilians and citizens. It's an outrage.
And Matthew Hurt, of course, we were speaking before President Trump spoke there at the White House about how this became something of a continuous backdrop to the Biden regime, of course, during those Black Lives Matter protests that seemed to rage on for months and months and months, mostly peaceful, almost celebrated by the mainstream media. And now we have a different boss. We have a change of guard. Matthew Hurt, I can't see President Trump backing down any time soon on this.
He's not going to, and these, quote, mostly peaceful protests by the American mainstream media are anything but. They're dangerous, and President Trump is going to put his foot down on these.
And the scenes of rocks being hurled through police car windows from overhanging bridges, scooters being used as projectiles. Clearly, there's a total dereliction of human life. It looks like it must surely be attempted murder on cases like that, Matthew. I'm suspecting we're going to see a lot of people having a lot of regrets when they're dragged before courts, when all the dust has settled on these riots.
And over and above that, Martin, there are left-wing protesters and agitators online who are actively identifying ICE agents and doxing them online in hopes that the left-wing mob will attack them personally at their homes. And President Trump and federal law enforcement have said, absolutely not. We're not going to allow this. And those individuals are also being apprehended fairly quickly. And I'm just grateful to President Trump for making an example of the rioters in Los Angeles and keeping Americans safe.
And I just think, Matthew Hurt, if this is a taste, it's just incredible to think that Gavin Newsom is ostensibly politically going to war with the president here. And a lot of people outside of the liberal states of America, Matthew Hurt, they'll be looking at this. Is this a taste of what a presidency, what a country could become if it were ran by somebody like Governor Newsom?
Well, the ads in the 2028 campaign trail will write themselves if Governor Newsom decides to run. And the American people, many of whom may not know about the riot in Los Angeles now, but they will certainly know about it in 2028. And most Americans, I would say 98% of Americans, are opposed to the kind of havoc that we're seeing on the streets of Los Angeles. This will not resonate with voters, and they will reject Gavin Newsom.
OK, Matthew Hurt, thank you very much for joining us, our Republican commentator live from Arlington, Virginia. Thank you very, very much. Now, if all of that was thirsty work, you're in luck, because Britain's first Reform UK pub has opened its doors. We've had them on the show before. The Talbot in Blackpool used to be a Conservative Party social club, but changed its political allegiance to Nigel Farage's party earlier this year. Let's get straight now to the chair of Reform UK for Blackpool and Fleetwood, Mark Butcher, who is at the Talbot with the co-owner of the establishment, Pete Flynn. Gentlemen, I believe you've got an exclusive for us, because you've named your house lager something very, very funny. Please tell us more.
Well, Martin, it was the inspiration from you. We named Remainer Tears, and it's been brilliant. We nearly sold out 3 times. Can you believe that? The inspiration, the last time we spoke, live on the TV, you said, will you sell a pint of Remainer Tears? And we've gone and done it. And Remainer Tears refreshes the parts other tears can't get to.
And Mark Butcher, this is hilarious stuff. This is the ultimate troll. Of course, Remainer Tears was always the trope that was used during the Brexit referendum, drinking in the tears of your political allies, and now you're serving pints of Remainer Tears in the Talbot.
Well, we're over the moon. We're over the moon. I mean, what perfect thing to happen, really. And the Talbot Reform UK pub, the first pub anywhere in the UK serving Remainer Tears.
Now, can we get a closer look at that pump at all? And can we please get you to pour a pint? And can we, gentlemen, there it is. There's that pump. Get in. You can see that.
Remainer Tears, please. Yeah, certainly can. Hopefully it'll get rid of all your Labour fears.
Now, gentlemen, are my eyes deceiving me? I'm not drunk. Is it really £2.20 a pint of Remainer Tears? £2.20?
Yes, it is. On promotion.
Oh, my God. Who's got a helicopter?
There you go. Well, I've got an aeroplane. I'll send it down for you.
Well, then, boys, I want to see these Remainer Tears going down your necks.
Martin. Cheers, pal. Cheers. And
what
thanks
is
for
that?
the
An orange
inspirational
juice?
advice.
Right, get it down, your son. Pete Flynn putting Remainer Tears, drinking them down. Now, does it taste especially sweet, Pete, with its, how should you put it, politically charged name?
Do you know what? Extremely sweet, and with gammon, eggs and chips, it's sold out. We've got the best gammon, egg and chips, not in the world anymore, because we sold out. So if you're going to come, like Janet Street Porter said on Loose Women, if you're going to come to our establishment here in Blackpool, which is another attraction, you have to bring your own gammon. We ran out.
Gentlemen, we've got to leave it there. Enjoy your Remainer Tears. Thank you very much, Mark and Pete. Thank you very much. Now, we've got Jubes & Co. next. How do you follow that? She's always a sight for sore eyes. Jubes & Co. What's on your menu?
Like the look of that pub. The only thing, maybe I missed it, they didn't mention whether or not they've got a karaoke night. If they had one of those, I'd be there, like a rat up a drain pipe. Absolutely love the sound of that. Look, we've got a lot to discuss. I've got Reform UK's new chairman, Dr. David Bull. He joins the show tonight. I want to look at that situation in Northern Ireland. Up and down this country, you know, you've got so many private landlords now making a fortune, private companies making a fortune, changing the streets, the working class communities of Britain, turning terraced houses into HMOs. Is all of this a recipe for disaster? I'll see you in a sec.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Following a damp start to the week for many of us, we've seen clearing skies today, the sunshine returning, and it's a fine end to the day for most of us before the heat and humidity builds later this week. Here's the low that brought the rain at the start of this week, but it is now clearing. However, it leaves a legacy of low cloud across southern counties. That cloud tending to thin through